Good evening. Welcome to the Southbridge Town Council meeting of Monday, March 9th, 2020. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councillor Adams.
Present.
Councillor Catrona.
Present.
Councillor Daniel.
Present.
Councillor Jovan.
Present.
Councillor Lazo.
Present.
Councillor Manna.
Present.
Councillor Marquetti.
Present.
Councillor Nash.
I believe he's absent. He didn't mention that he was not going to be able to make it, so
Councillor Steves.
Present.
we do have a quorum. Item 3, consider and accept the Town Council minutes of Monday, March 2nd, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any errors, corrections, or omissions? Councilor Daniel.
Yes, please, through you, on page 2, agenda item 11, about two-thirds of the way down, it says volume increase 15%, 19 ambulance calls were lost to mutual aid. That should be 109.
Thank you.
And one further one. In Councilor Forum, my statement, the speeding actually occurred on South Street by Five Star Auto Repair, and the website for the museum is heritageopticalmuseum.com.
Okay. Do you have those corrections, Mayor? Okay. Any further corrections? Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, on page 3, agenda item number 12, if you go down, where it says, it's like the second full, the first full sentence up, where it says generator, that should be converter.
Okay. Anything further? All those in favor as amended? Opposed? Unanimous vote, President. Subcommittee reports. General Government, Councilor Steves.
Haven't had a meeting, don't have one scheduled.
Thank you. Department of Public Works, Councilor Nash is not here. There was a meeting held last week. There are items on the agenda here for tonight, and we can speak to those when they come forward. A lot of it had to do with transfers regarding the sewer treatment plant. Education and Human Services, Councilor Lazo.
Yes, we had a meeting on the 9th. We'll be speaking and recommending on the agenda items tonight and on those issues. And we have a meeting on the 18th at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Plan and Development, Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, we have not had a meeting since our last town council meeting. I have not scheduled one as of yet, but hopefully in the next few weeks we will. And agenda item number 19 will be discussed this evening.
Thank you. Councilor Adams, if you could give us an update on curbside advisory board, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, apologize. So we have a meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. in the Veterans Room. We're finishing up the presentation for the months of June or July. Also, I want to make note that recently, I think it was last Friday, in the Southbridge Evening News, there was conversation, or there was an article stating that the Curbside Advisory Committee had been discussing about putting a landfill back in the town of Southbridge. That is false. There's supposed to be a retraction from that journalist here hopefully this week. If not, I'll be contacting the editor this week as well. But that is a false statement.
Thank you. And just to further add on to Councilor Adams' point there, just to make it clear, the town of Charlton did reach out to myself to ask, was their understanding, Kathleen Walker, who we've known a long time, that's very, very involved in issues in Charlton. I believe she's on a sustainability committee out there, and the Board of Health. She had reached out to me asking about what we were doing because she was made aware of the group, and I had advised her that we, upon the settlement with Casella, we had 5.5 years to figure out what we were going to do with trash here in Southbridge, and we had appointed an advisory board chaired by Councilor Adams. Councilor Steves is on that. Councilor Marquetti's on it. He, at the time, was appointed. And we were just looking at options, and I made that clear to the town of Charlton that we were looking at options and referred them to Councilor Adams. We made it very clear that we are not in the landfill business, but we are looking at the options. So I'm not sure how that got misinterpreted by the news, but we look forward to working with partners if we can expand and come up with solutions that we can regionalize. That's something that we would definitely take a look at, but that's all we're at right now. So there is no talk of a landfill here in Southbridge or Charlton. Council Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add in, Kathleen will be, I believe, attending our meeting tomorrow, and she also has invited me to Charlton's Board of Health meeting on the 18th next week. So just trying to pick each other's brains, and since we've been doing this for the last year, she thought it'd be wise to reach out to Councilor Jovan and later on to me to just have that discussion and see where we could help each other out, but there is, again, no landfill discussion whatsoever. And by the way, if you take a look at it, there's a requirement by the ballot to put any type of landfill back in this town. So thank you.
Thank you, Council. And we look forward to the final report that will be pending probably after the July elections, I believe.
Right.
That his group that has been working very hard will bring us some options so that we as a council can debate whatever those options are and get a solution ready and on for all the residents by the time our contract ends. So we've been very proactive in this approach, and thank all the members of that committee for working diligently to bring up the best solutions and plan accordingly. Protections of person and property, Council Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I haven't had any meetings, so I don't have any minutes. But we do have a couple items on the agenda that are from the police department. They're transfers, and we gave the okay just for them to come up to town council instead of just going to subcommittee. I think there's 4 items on the agenda for that. That's all. I don't have any meetings planned at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman's announcements. Again, I am still looking for 5 citizens to sit on a charter review committee. That is a requirement of the charter. To date, we have not received, I've been announcing this for a year and a half now. We do not have any residents. It's important that we have a committee. It is due to be appointed in April. So if anybody out there wishes to help out the town and get involved and to start a process, if you're interested in town government, this would be a great way to learn how our government here in Southbridge was established in the review and how the town operates, and any feedback that we can get from residents would be great. So please put a letter of interest or just fill out a form in the town manager's office if you're interested, and we'll contact you. Again, 5 residents for that. Just for information, this was in our packet tonight, a legal notice, just to give the residents notice of this. Notice hereby given that a community outreach meeting for a proposed marijuana establishment is scheduled for March 26, 2020 at 6 p.m. at the community conference room located at Southbridge Police Department, 1 Mechanic Street in Southbridge, Massachusetts. The proposed marijuana establishment will be an adult-use marijuana retail establishment to be located at 208 Worcester Street in Southbridge, Massachusetts. At that hearing, or that meeting, outreach meeting, there will be an opportunity for the public to ask questions. That location is the old Coops Scoops property. Just want to take this opportunity to say that I attended in the Fire Station Building Committee in my capacity as the chairman of that committee. Just to give an update, we had a great conversation. There was a few counselors there as well to talk about the next steps for the fire station. We will be starting some outreach again, starting with a cable access program with the Deputy Fire Chief, who's a member of the committee. We appointed Mike Julian, who's the Assistant Building Commissioner, last week. He attended the meeting. He had some great ideas about some thoughts. And the architect who has finished their work but wishes to continue to work with the town of Southbridge in seeing this project through, we talked about private-public partnerships and how we could go about developing those options and whether it was allowable under the procurement procedures. It sounds like an interesting concept. They had sent some architects down to Texas to attend an event. We'll be following up with those representatives in the next 2 weeks. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 24th, I believe, that week. We also talked about, at some point, this will have to come to the ballot, to the town council first to be pushed on a ballot. I know Councilor Marchetti had sent me an email after the meeting suggesting that we could do this in June. We've had a lot of conversations about timing of this ballot question. We do not feel prepared to go before June. I think it would be not unwise to do that because, as Councilor Lazo, I'm sure, can attest to, whenever you do a project like this, you have to do a lot of sales pitches and to get out in the community. So if that is the final product that we're going to put out, we'll have to get out to the community and really work with groups to get as much information as to the cost of this proposal and what it will take. So our target is if we're going to put it on the ballot, it would be at the presidential election in November. So that would be, I think that would be the best take. We'd have a larger turnout, I believe, for the presidential. We would have a better sense of the whole community. So that is why, Councilor Marquetti, that it's not for the June ballot. It will be done in November. So that is all I have this evening. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one announcement. It's from Whitewater, which is the company who runs our water system, stated March 3rd, 2020. Immediate release, Southbridge Water Department to perform semi-annual hydrant flushing. Southbridge Charlton. Southbridge Water Department will start its semi-annual hydrant flushing program on Sunday, March 15, 2019 at approximately 9 p.m. and continue during overnight hours for approximately 6 to 8 weeks between the hours of 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. Flushing will start in the Westville area and continue easterly throughout the town. The procedure will include the cleaning of the reservoir intake screens, flushing accumulated sediments from the water mains, and testing the operation of each hydrant. The department requests that during this period, customers check their water before washing clothes. Customers may get accumulated sediments in their house laterals and experience some discolored water. This will clear after a brief run of the water at the tap. Please contact the Southbridge Water Department at 508-764-3207 if you have any questions or comments. Again, it's really important because when people see the water come out and it's brown, they immediately think there's a major concern. There really is not. Just let the water run for a couple seconds. It'll automatically clear itself out. And that's the only announcement I have this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, presentations. We have 2 presentations this evening. The first one is appreciation certificates, a student recognition to 5 volunteers for maintenance of McMahon Field last summer. Councilor Adams, back in December, had forwarded to me an email stating that he had been approached by a teacher and verified by staff members that they would like to recognize, that we should recognize 5 students from Southbridge High School who spent the summer painting McMahon Field. He asked that we'd like to have the council recognize these students at a council meeting this January with appreciation recognition certificate. And it's always great to recognize individuals in the community who go above and beyond, and to have these students step up. And I did ask the teacher, Ms. Landine, whether she wanted to come to talk about these students and what the project was, and she stated that perhaps the students should come up and discuss what they did. So what I've asked before I go to the podium to present these certificates to the following students: Bernard Amponsa. I'm sorry, Bernard, if I mispronounced that. Bernard's a great kid. He serves on the Superintendent Advisory Board. A lot of information. Great kid. Zachary Bessie, Benjamin Bousquet, Benjamin Lazo, and Charles Lopez. So when I said to the teacher perhaps they could give us some words about what they did at this project and how they took it upon themselves to do this project, she stated really she didn't have that much information and that perhaps the students could introduce what they did. So it was tasked on the next Lazo generation, Benjamin Lazo, to give a few words about what they did before I give this certificate. So I'll turn this over to Benjamin. Benjamin, if you just pull the microphone towards you.
I would like to start off by thanking the town council for having us here tonight and recognizing the work we did over the summer. I was asked when I got here to please explain why we did what we did at McMahon Field, and it was really just to give back to a town that has given so much to us. Like when you're at the games, when you're in Pop 1 or 5 years old, growing up through the system, you go to the high school games at McMahon, you really get a sense for the pride and tradition that's at the field and that's been around for 100 years so. And, you know, one day I was just walking around McMahon Field and I realized that we had a busted dugout that hadn't been painted. The paint's been worn off for a couple of years. And I just realized that there was something that we could do to give back to the community. So I contacted Mr. James Prue and asked if he got the materials, if me and a few of my volunteers, Charlie and all them, could come and we could just do it on our own time. And we spent the better part of the whole summer for day in, day out, getting there at 8, leaving at 12, getting locked in at McMahon Field painting and slatting, just trying to do it, removing the slats, putting new slats, painting, clearing poison ivy off the fences where Charlie got a very bad reaction. And the whole time, no matter how tough it was or how long it took or if it seemed like it was a waste of our time, we all knew that, you know, it was just giving back to a town, because even though that some people may think that the pride and tradition of Southbridge High, the football team, and this town is gone, it's not. It's still there. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Well said. All right, Benjamin, I made you do that long walk back, so if the group of you will come forward, please. So on behalf of the town of Southbridge, I'd like to thank you for that work that you did at the field. Having graduated, many of my fellow councilors have graduated from the high school as well. There is a lot of pride and tradition at Southbridge High. We're proud pioneers. I did not know, I knew the slats had been done, but I didn't realize that that was done by you, the students. That is a commendable effort, because that is a lot of work to go through and do that. So for you, Charlie got poison ivy. So it's for the 100th year, I'm sure it was a lot of pride and tradition to play in that football game and the work that you did. Is that a guarantee? All right, we're going to hold you to that guarantee. For the size of the squad you had, you did a great job this year, though, so I commend you on that. So to all of you, Zachary Bessie, Benjamin Lazo, Busquet's not here, so I'll give it to you to bring to him. Benjamin Busquet, Bernard, I won't kill the name, Bernard. Did I get it right? Someone, okay, and Charles Lopez. The town of Southbridge presents a certificate of appreciation to express its gratitude to you for volunteering your time this past summer for the care and maintenance of McMahon Field. Your dedication and efforts, along with those fellow students, set an example for others to emulate. On behalf of the town council and the citizens in Southbridge, we wish to express our appreciation for a job well done. Congratulations. So, Charles? Bernard? Congratulations. Benjamin? Zachary? And any of you seniors this year? All right. So we wish you the best of luck as you graduate from Southbridge High School. Hope we see you back here in town as you further your careers, whatever it may be, college, military, workforce. Congratulations and the best of luck. Thank you. Any comments from anyone? No?
Yep, I will, just real quick.
Council Adams?
I just want to say thank you to Kelly for reaching out to me months ago and taking care of these fine students and scholar athletes. And you know, we need more of that to be recognized, because there is so much more within our town that needs to be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just, for the record, the reason why we didn't do this back in January is because all of these gentlemen are athletes and had to play basketball. So on the nights that we had council meetings, they had to play sports or were involved in other activities. So it wasn't that we wanted to push it back. It was because they're so involved in the community and their school. So again, congratulations. And thank you for being here. Your parents, well done. They're a credit to our town, our community, and our school system. Council Lauser?
Thank you all the way around, staff, students especially. Giving back to the community starts at a young age. You'll continue to do it the rest of your life. It's what you want to do. It's good stuff, and we're proud of you. But I'm a little kind of shocked. When I went to school, the lineman could not articulate a message like that lineman did. And I was waiting for Chuck Lopez to get up, the smiley one, because he's another one that can speak very well. I'm very proud of you, and I think you did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, Ben, job well done since I put you up to it 2 minutes before the meeting started. So well done. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, staff. So to follow on that, that's a lot of the good that's going on. We're here with Dr. Jeffrey Villar and his staff that are going to provide a school update to us. It's a pleasure to have Dr. Villar here to meet with us to discuss what's been going on in the school system. Obviously, we are doing a lot of things right. If we have students like that in our community, in our school system, we do know that there's a lot that we have to still accomplish. But Dr. Villar, welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I do feel a little set up having those students show me up before I even had a chance to speak, but it's awesome that they were here, and I appreciate Mrs. Landine for making that possible. She's a super advocate for her students, and those young men actually show us very much what you see going on every day in the school. It's not always what we hear in the street, but in reality, there are scores of kids who are doing very, very well in our schools, and it's important for people to see them, and they did a great job of representing Southbridge High School, so I thank them for that work. Tonight, I want to give you a brief update. Now, your packets are 50 pages long. There's a lot of data in there. I'm hoping not to speak to each slide tonight because I think you want me to be concise, but I also wanted to make sure I gave you some information that you could look to. And I offer to the council, and many of you have taken me up on this, but I'm happy to sit with each of you individually, and I answer any questions about this presentation or anything else in the school. And I do want to thank those counselors who have come recently and met with me to discuss these things, because I think it's really important that we have an opportunity to share the positive that's going on in the schools. So there are three areas that really four areas that we're going to focus on overall this evening. One is our school-wide, district-wide efforts to improve climate and culture in the schools. One of the initiatives that we're using is the Positive Behaviors Interventions and Supports. You may recall that we have a collaborative relationship with the University of Connecticut. We're a national demonstration site for this approach. It's 25 years of research behind it. I'm also going to speak to the elementary curriculum work we're doing with literacy, language arts in particular. In grades 6 through 12, we are working on our language arts and mathematics, and we're in the process of really reimagining some aspects of secondary school, and we call that secondary school redesign work. When we talk about climate and culture, it's data-driven, so we use a series of assessments to try to tell us whether or not we're making progress with the initiative. So it's not just a gut feeling, but it's actually measurements that are collected by teams at the school and by university researchers. So the first measure that we rely on is the tiered fidelity instrument. And this essentially allows us to look at to what extent are we actually doing this initiative that we call Positive Behaviors Interventions and Supports. I won't get into the specifics of the approach other than to say that it's all about being very specific in teaching expectations to children, being very clear about what we would like to see. It's all about creating scenarios where you set children up for being successful. It absolutely still relies on traditional discipline as well, but research really tells us that you really need to tell kids what you expect of them if you're going to demand that of them as well. What this graph tells us is that 3 of our schools are currently at a level of 70% or higher, which means they have begun to implement what we refer to as Tier 1 of the PBIS initiative. Other 3 schools are still working towards Tier 1 implementation levels. The schools that we're going to look at that are in that implementation phase as far as hit that first target are Eastford Road, our pre-K1 school, Charlton Street, which is a 2 through 5 school, and then the Southbridge Academy, which is our alternative therapeutic day school. Those 3 schools are actually at full implementation level in Tier 1. Another tool that's done at each school by the team of educators, the teachers who lead this initiative, is called the Team Implementation Checklist. This is done more frequently, and it allows, again, us to get some data on whether or not a school is progressing in the implementation of PBIS. And what we'll see is there's a validity that holds true between these 2 instruments that I'm speaking about. And we'll see that, again, at ERS, in Charlton Street, and at Southbridge Academy, we find that those schools have reached implementation levels, and the other schools are making progress in moving in that direction. When we take a look at referral level data in our schools, when we speak to an office referral, we're talking about a situation where a child has done something that's required intervention, either the administrator, and sometimes it's a teacher level intervention, but we collect that data. It's very important to know what happened, where it happened, when it happened, and even we ask questions as whether or not we know why it may have happened, trying to get at what we refer to as an antecedent of the behavior to try to figure out how to stop a cycle of behavior. What you'll see here in this graph at ERS, Eastford Road School, we have now over year, green is this year and blue is last, through the implementation. You're seeing generally very low referral rates at the school, an average 2 incidents a day that require that type of intervention. That doesn't mean we don't have days that are higher, it is an average. But they're making great progress at the school, and it's really rather amazing to see how well things are happening at ERS. When we move forward to take a look at Charlton Street, it's a similar pattern. Again, and on the tick, we're seeing great progress at Charlton Street. We're over 90% now in Tier 1. And when we look at the office referral data at that school, it holds that, again, we're really now down to an average of 1 as of the last data collection, referral per day. The school is working hard to be very proactive in putting plans into place for children. Southbridge Academy, the third of the 3 that show this pattern, again, full implementation of Tier 1. And this is our therapeutic day school, so the most challenging students in the district, and we're seeing average referrals around 5 at this point. So again, that climate has made a significant shift. The rest of the schools are in various states. Again, so we can see the relationship at West Street. They're actually at a dip first year with a new principal. Thank goodness she has 5 years experience as she came to us. But they have begun this year to kind of regain traction. And leadership is a critical piece. Quickly, you'll see in this chart, numbers this year look higher. And I have a follow-up chart. We have our socio-emotional program at the school. So our young children who have significant needs and are likely to have emotional outbursts at school. So we have some different programming for them. So when we pull them out of the equation, the school is actually now at around 3 on average referrals per day. But we still have to track that behavior. It's very important. Councilor Mann, I see you have your hand
Yeah, just
up.
quick, she referred to me. This is per day because the chats say per month.
I'm sorry?
The chats say per month, but it's per day data?
Well, it's an average per day per month.
Okay.
Is what it's meant. Thank you for that clarification. Again, I'm not going to go through each of the schools' charts, but I do want to point out a couple areas of concern. So at the secondary school, this is an area that we've been working particularly hard at in the last few months in particular because the numbers have been high, and quite candidly, it's not acceptable. We need to make sure that we have see improvement across all schools. The high school continues to struggle a bit. We're at 16 referrals on average for the month of January. Middle school was particularly high. In October, you may recall, actually, we had a conversation, and at one point, we're averaging 56 when this graph was pulled. We are now down to 15, and it's been significant intervention, and what had happened. We've done a few things that are very important. One is Dr. Farrick, my deputy superintendent, has been working directly with the leadership team at the school, and we've created a center called the Student Support Center. And what we're doing is trying to get ahead of a situation in the school. So with the creation of the center, we made it clear to staff, if you call for help, if there's a reason a student needs to be removed from your class. In middle school, boy, kids will challenge you. I used to be a middle school principal and middle school teacher, so I've experienced this myself quite a bit. But if there's a reason or need for a child to be removed from class, the staff that we have put together will take care of that. That student then goes to the Student Support Center. A student could find their way into that center if they happen to be in the hallway when they should be in class. And at middle school, we had some data that showed that kids were trying to cut class, and so they were in the hallways, and that disrupts learning for everybody. Not acceptable. So kids found their way into the center, and once they're in there, the center utilizes all the principles of positive behaviors, interventions, and supports. So there's a social worker assigned to that room. There's a student engagement officer assigned to that room. And as soon as they bring the kid in, there's an intake process. And essentially, that student has to earn their way out of that room. So there's a conversation about what happened. There's point sheets. There's classwork sent down that they have to complete. If they're there a minimum of 2 periods, their parent will be contacted. If it happens before lunch, they're going to get their lunch delivered to them while they're there. If it happens in the afternoon, they're going to likely spend an hour after school in detention. There is a caveat there. We do have to have parent permission, and some kids do take care of younger children, which means they may return to the center in the morning. That can vary. But the purpose is not just to deter behavior, but to get ahead of it. So based on the data we collect in this center, we have begun what we call restorative conversations with teachers, which means trying to work with the child to understand what went wrong and facilitate a conversation with the teacher about what went wrong. If a student can't be successful here, they likely are suspended out of school. The purpose is to try to prevent that, but again, we have to have order and we have to make sure that children are learning what our expectations are. This gives us an opportunity, though, to really try to short-circuit patterns of behavior that can happen and get kids back on track. Now,
Before you go on to,
Yep.
Councilman, I had a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. If you could go back to slide 16, it is just, no, before the one that you just weren't, yeah. Yeah, so looking at the data here, we see August, September, and October of 2019 was relatively lower, and then it spiked in 2020 for those months. But then when you go to November, we see the decline. What was the reason for the spikes from the 2019?
Well, it's interesting, you see that in both years it goes up, and I think there's a couple phenomena that are occurring. This year, one, I think our data collection is very good, so we're definitely getting 100% of folks like referring, and actually you have to go on and fill out a form on the computer to get that data captured. But you know, school starts out, we have best intentions, systems are put in place, and what I'm seeing as a pattern is by October, those systems start to slip, and by November, we kind of have to reset and try to apply. Now, in this current school year, we added adjustment counselors. So we have an adjustment counselor per grade level at the middle school. Actually, it's probably November-ish, a position of the principal for instruction was eliminated, or that person was moved into a different role, so I could hire an assistant principal. So we had an assistant principal at each grade level. So we certainly gave them staff to try to deal with the situation, but that still didn't sufficiently create an environment that I would feel was conducive to learning, and that's what brought us to the conversation of what's next. And that's where we said, well, we need to have a consistent intervention, which the Student Support Center seems to be helping. It's certainly an important part of the puzzle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So I do want to show you another, again, there's quite a few slides, but this one here, what this counts is it shows that about 52% or so of the students, I'm sorry, this page 21, about 51% of the students who found themselves into the Student Support Center only did so once. So I would count that as an effective intervention for that group of children. The next group shows kids 2 or 3 times, around the 23% range. And then at the top, you can see that there's a group of kids that repeatedly find themselves in that section. These are some of the data, not the only data, but certainly a piece of the data puzzle that have led me to work with staff to begin the expansion of the academy. Because if you have students who are constantly, revolving in and out of this intervention, which means the next step is suspension, we're not meeting their needs. And we need a program that is more responsive to them. So we're working now to implement the expanded Southbridge Academy, so grades 6 through 12 will be in that school. And it's, again, for kids either with an IEP, or it could also be for students in the regular education population that need more. And there's a process that will be put in place to select those children. But the data show that there's a group of kids that we haven't been meeting their needs, and we obviously need to do so. So that's an important slide. With that, I'm going to transition into early literacy. And certainly, again, I'm offering my time to any of you if you want to delve deeper into these and ask different questions. You may follow up after. 2 years ago, we started working on early literacy, saying, the foundation is critically important. We need to get kids reading on grade level as soon as possible if we're going to have a fighting chance for them to take rigorous courses in high school. So these tables here essentially show us where we were last January in one assessment. We use the DIBELS. I won't get too far into that, but it's a series of very small assessments that measure the basic skills of reading. And so there are several subtests. This one measures phonemic segmentation, like the ability to sound out words. And you can see last January, we had approximately, say about 30%. Sorry, this monitor's far away, and these are small. Students here at goal. But what you can see this year, we have that whole big chunk of students here in blue. And blue means at this time of year, they've already mastered the content for that grade level. Like they are on target to be ready to roll for first grade. That's a significant jump for us. It needs to get even better in the future. Again, it's not a victory lap, but what this is progress. It's significant progress, and it's because our teachers have been working with a new curricula, PD every Wednesday. We have a group called Hill for Literacy that supports the teachers in training this. And we're in the buildings all the time, and our teachers are doing great work in their classrooms, teaching kids the basic skills of reading, and the data are starting to support that. Here's just another one in kindergarten, then I'll move on to some other grade levels quickly. But when we talk about right words read or fluency, words read, this is important. Now, kids start kindergarten all in the red. Very few kids in Southbridge are coming in reading, but what you can see by mid-year, we have a good 40% who are on target. They're moving along, and we're narrowing these gaps. So it is good, solid progress. This carries through in grade 1. We're seeing progress because we began this work last year, so we have a cohort of kids who have definitely acquired more skills than we've seen in the past. Just jumping ahead, we use a diagnostic in second grade through grade 5. It's called iReady. This is a digital online platform that does reading comprehension and sub-skills. And these data follow a similar pattern. We're stronger at the lower levels, and we have gaps at the higher levels in elementary school, so we have a lot of work to do there. But a model we found pretty effective is we do a what I need block in every elementary classroom for about 45 minutes a day. Basically based on the reading assessments. In addition to normal reading instruction, we have a different class where small groups of kids are grouped together based on their specific reading skill need, their instructional need, and we have everyone in the building taking a group for that period of time. And that has begun to help meet kids' specific needs, and it seems to be closing some gaps. Again, the pattern follows through less strong results as we go up. If there makes some sense to that. Again, we have a new program that's 2 years in, and it is going to take some time. But teachers are working very hard at the secondary level, at the elementary level, to try to close those gaps. I just want to show this graph. It's page 31. It says grade 4 growth. So what we see in here in this lower quadrant, it's got a square box on it. About 41% of the kids have met the growth target expected for them by January. So that's like a high five for those classroom teachers. Those teachers have moved those kids a year's growth by January. Now, we still have a long way to go in the year, and we're talking about sometimes children are 2 or 3 years behind. So closing that gap, you have to go more than a year if you're going to make progress. So I've encouraged principals, because this also can be broken down by classroom and specific student. And principals need to be having conversations with these teachers and giving them the high five, recognizing the hard work, because sometimes we look at how many kids are on grade level. And, did you do that? It's 100%, and that's expectation. But if you moved a kid a year and a half in your class in a year, you worked real hard. Closing gaps takes a lot of effort on the part of teachers. So there's really good progress. If this data follows through, these children are going to have, again, they're going to be reading on grade level. We're catching them up, and that's important. And it's not in every classroom. The data breaks out, but there are teachers who are doing a super job. And again, we need to highlight and have them share with their colleagues what are they doing in their class that's making them successful, and that's the work that's underway for sure. So I'll quickly transition to the secondary school curriculum-based work. Again, mathematics, language arts. In math, we are in year 2 of illustrated mathematics, which is a very rigorous mathematics program. 6 really through 10 that's being implemented in. And then we are in year 2 of the guidebooks curriculum, which also is a difficult language arts curriculum. It puts all kids reading grade level materials with a focus on literature, text, authentic text. We've had setbacks this year. So we lost a really good English teacher. She was our department chair. She left to be a consultant in Rhode Island. We certainly wish her well, but we miss her. And that's a blow to the department for sure. And then we started the year with 4 out of 5 of our high school math teachers being new to us. Some of them new to teaching. Some of them hired after school started. So behind the 8 ball in math at high school with our staff. We use a tool called the Instruction Practice Guide to monitor instruction in our language arts and math classes. And so what this tells us in language arts in 2018 was our first time we used it. Then in 2019 we saw growth and we were excited. And then 2020, this January, we actually slid backwards. We didn't make growth. Now I did identify there's blue arrows on this chart. Each of those areas with a blue arrow means we're still above where we started, but it's backsliding. Certainly not acceptable. It's not at all where we want to be, but it is the reality, and it's part of our action planning was to use these data to say what's gone wrong, what needs to be changed, because we should be seeing improvement. In mathematics at the high school, as I mentioned, 4 out of 5 of our teachers are brand new. They meet voluntarily with the high school principal before school many days a week to work on their skills, as well as we have professional development every Wednesday. So these people are working really hard. So although it's their first year with this curriculum and they just started with us, we have not lost ground in our high school math scores on the IPG. And when we break out the middle school staff who are consistent, have been with us, we actually have a lot to be happy about, the middle school, as far as math instruction goes. There was growth in almost every category, some of it quite significant this year. We're really seeing math teachers starting to take hold of this new curriculum and delivering it in a very powerful way. Our efforts around secondary school redesign, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking to expand the academy, add up to 25 students, grades 6 through 12. That's going to be a process. It's going to take time. There's a lot of laws, IEP process, and obviously some conversations around programming for each of those children. We are in the beginning stages of reaching back out because, again, some of these programs had existed. We've had conversations with Worcester State, with Quinn Sig about dual enrollment programs and getting our kids involved in more rigorous advanced placement courses and different kind of career-oriented work. We have begun the work to look at career pathways. There's a whole process for that. But again, trying to give kids high-interest courses that could result in certificates and other types of job opportunities, and set the stage for the possibility if they want to go into higher ed in those areas, that they could continue along the way. One such career path that we're discussing is the medical field, looking, at nursing, and there's many off-ramps from that. We also have a local hospital that obviously is playing in our minds of thinking about how we might be able to do this work. We also are talking about the fact that we have a dual language program that's now up to grade 3. And, we're seeing native English speakers learning to speak Spanish pretty fluently, and we're seeing the reverse. Kids who came to us speaking Spanish learning English, and seeing if we can carry that through to high school. You could have then a seal of, biliteracy as a graduate from Southbridge, which would be a powerful an aspirational thing for us, tapping into a community strength. And we're looking at restructuring our middle school. Grade 6 is a place where right now we're having conversations. We've reached out to the grade 6 teachers. We've talked to the other grade levels as well, and some of our instructional partners, because we're seeing that transition to from grade 5 to grade 6 is a very difficult one for our kids. And so we're trying to figure out what we could do to make that look different to result in better outcomes for all of our students. So I rushed through a lot of stuff. I skipped plenty of slides. I expect that you might have some questions. Obviously, there's a lot more going on in our schools, but I tried to stay focused on our major goals, but happy to answer your questions.
Questions, comments? Council Manning?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I just want to thank the superintendent, the receiver, to come and present this to us. I'm very happy for the community to see this, and they'll see it over and over again, too. And I was very glad. I was one of those counselors that took some time to go meet with the superintendent and ask those questions and get a better sense of where things were. And he was as honest then as he is now. I mean, he was very forward. And I really appreciate that and appreciate all that you're doing. You were not handed an easy task, so I commend you for what you have doing and what you've done so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Marquetti?
I'd like to thank the receiver, too, for coming here tonight. I did have a chance to sit down and talk to you, and I hope you don't mind if I ask some of the same questions that I asked then. A lot of residents in town have asked me to pass these questions along. The perception is in town is that the high school is very top-heavy. And when I asked you about that, you acknowledged that you are top-heavy, and you said because there's a disciplinary problem at the schools. Is that what you said?
So, yeah, as I mentioned this evening, we have at the middle school an assistant principal at each grade level. We have a principal for that school. There's an operations person for the whole building. And then on the high school side, we have an assistant principal and the principal. We also have student engagement officers who are people that are in the hallways, and we have adjustment counselors. From my experience, that's a lot of people in a small school. But we're reestablishing a learning culture. The expectation is, yes, I would say in the future, when receivership goes and the state money that comes with that, we need to have a model footprint in place that works, that's sustainable for the local. And that is something I've had conversation with many members of the council about. It's not lost on me that, right now we have about $1 million that DESI gives to me through a grant to support this work. That's not going to be there forever, and so we will need to transition. But as the data show, we're not there yet.
And through the chairman, some residents were asking about teacher turnover. Is there a big teacher turnover at the school, in the schools?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. And actually, there is a slide. Let's see if I can quickly find it. Sure.
What page is it?
Three from the last, three from the back.
Probably like 47.
Oh, sure, Ned. Sorry about that. I'll have to go the old-fashioned way. Whoops, I think it just passed it. So this data here I supplied with you, there's a set of data that show, I think it's about 10 years going back. And prior to this year, we were as low as 57.4% for teacher retention. So that's a significant problem. And it began to really go down 2016, no doubt, with receivership. right? I mean, there was a whole process where large numbers of teachers left, and I'm not a fan. And the bottom line is what we've been trying to do is work to retain teachers. Our calculations, it's not the official state number yet, but our calculation this year puts us at 72%. So we're up for 57, or 54.7, excuse me, to about 72. We need to go back higher, at least in the 80s, because we're investing in these people, and we need them to stay. The data I showed you this evening, the middle school math teachers are doing much better. Well, they've been with us. So it's a critical piece to this puzzle is to get people and keep them. Now, we can't keep people if they don't feel supported and they don't feel like the school they're working in isn't orderly and safe and all of that. So again, part of the investment in that system. This week, actually last Friday, we sent out letters of assurance to staff. So by law in Massachusetts, by June 15th, you have to tell teachers whether or not they have a job the year coming up. So we 2 years in a row now have kind of combed through the data, done projections. Who can we say, without a doubt, you're going to be here next year? And so we sent those letters out to staff. Because what I don't want to have happening is staff hear us, every year, every town has the budget dance. And everyone starts talking about the budget and how much money we're going to have. And then the gossip about who's going to get cut starts to happen. And teachers look elsewhere. Because, hey, they got families. They need to have security. So we sent letters to a vast majority of our staff members. We're trying to give people time. We want to give them the maximum 3 years before we make that commitment to them, and we want them to grow. I think that's helping. We'll see if next year's number is higher or not, and then I can tell you if it seems to be.
And about dropout rates and school choice, is that higher?
So the dropout rate data is here as well, and that has gone up and down quite a bit. As far as school choice, we still have about 600 kids, Seth, that choice out. So that's a large number. Honestly, at the moment, if they all came back, I don't think we'd have room for them the way schools are configured. But certainly my objective is to make choice difficult for every family because Southbridge schools should be a great choice. I support families choosing for their kids, but right now, we absolutely have a good number of kids who are taking that choice outside of the district.
And budget, as far as the budget info, you're going to be presenting that fairly soon?
Yes, we're hoping to have a public hearing in April. But as far as the actual number, I know we've communicated a number to Ron. My goal is to try to have as much information as we had last year, if not more, for the folks to see where the money's going in the schools.
And I really appreciate you being very honest and upfront with me. I did want to ask one more question. I hope you don't take too offense by it, but some people want to know why you are not showing up at these school committee meetings.
Well, thank you. I made the choice this summer to stop attending school committee meetings after almost 2 years of attending them when the meetings became, again, about me and receivership instead of about positive conversations. The last thing we need running on television is a bunch of people fighting about receivership. Be very clear, the law that established receivership made it very clear that the school committee would no longer have really any authority. So in my mind, I attended it as a way of getting information out to the community. Again, when it became about me, that's not really good. I have a staff member who does attend, and if you take a look at her report, she gives an awful lot of information. I will also be posting this presentation on our website, which will become our quarterly report for March. We produce about 100 pages of data for the school committee every quarter. I'm hoping that we can get to a place where we have positive conversations about the good things that are happening in schools, but my job is to turn around the schools. No disrespect to the folks who are on the school committee. It's not about that. It's about me making sure I have a focus on what's important right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Steves?
First of all, thank you for coming down. My one quick question at the moment is taking a look at the two attendance rate graphs. One says you've got an average attendance rate of 90%, and the very next one, the chronically absentee rate, is 33%. Could you explain how those mesh?
So I'm sorry, I'm on chronically absentee. So you're probably asking how Desi crunches that number. And I'd have to go and ask their data guy how he pulls it all together. These are directly out of their portal, where you can pull down the data from them. So I can certainly follow back and see if they can give me a breakdown how they do it. The message, though, is we've had historically a problem with student attendance. We still have a problem with student attendance. I think there's two sides to that coin. So one side of the coin is what are we doing in school, in classes, to engage kids and make them successful, because that's really how you get them in the door. And there's another side of that coin, which is how are we reaching out to families and helping them hold their kids accountable to get to school. So it's a mixed equation. I have limited resources, so right now my focus is on fixing what's going on in the schools. It doesn't mean we don't have family liaisons reaching out and calling families. We do. We use DCF when necessary. It's certainly not a choice you'd like to make. But we have a lot of work to do on the instruction in school. And I'm sorry, what was the other part of your question, the attendance rate?
Yeah, I was curious about why, because logically, if you've got one says a 90% attendance rate, obviously that seems to imply you've got a very low chronically absent rate.
Well, actually,
But it's 33%.
90%
So.
is not good attendance, right? Because that's daily attendance, and that means 10% of your kids, roughly, aren't there on any given day. But chronic absenteeism are particular kids who miss more than 18 days in the school year. So maybe that's the easy answer to that. They're two different calculations. Neither of these data sets say that we have good attendance.
You all set, Council Steve? You all set?
No.
Yeah, Council Lazo?
Mr. Villar, welcome. Thank you very much for coming tonight. With this data package, and at the pace that we're going, and the money that we're spending, do you have any idea how long it would take for you and the state to turn this district around and hand it back over to the town of Southbridge? That's my first question. My second question is there such a thing as a design to do that at the state level?
All right. The second question is probably the easier one. I don't know if there's a design. They do have some research they've done, and I guess you could say ideas, concepts about how you do it. So talent and leadership, etc. But an actual design, no, because if it were that simple, essentially, if there was a recipe, nationally this wouldn't be difficult. It's really difficult work because it's about building culture in schools, and culture work takes a long time. My maybe first meeting ever, it was a slightly different council. I remember saying 5 to 7 years, like my second day on the job. It could even be 7 to 9 years. It really depends on the progress of the data. I think we're a couple years out from seeing at the elementary level things that might move the needle on the almighty MCAS, right? Because everyone always talks about the MCAS. If this kindergarten cohort keeps learning, they have a great chance of doing much, much better on the MCAS than we've seen in a long time. But that's the nature of this work. So that's why from day one, I said 5 to 7. I'm 2 years in, and we're just starting to get granular data that looks positive. So it's going to take some time. But I can tell you, folks who've been in the buildings feel it. I mean, they're definitely different. They're definitely a much more positive place, and it's because there's a lot of teachers here working really hard in Southbridge.
The thing that makes it so frustrating, and part of it's no reflection on you, it's that when the state came down and with the big stick on the Southbridge School Committee in town, there were times and deadlines and have-to-haves and must-haves and get it done. And I kind of liked it. Now the state takes over, and without doing the history, I'm frustrated because the State Department of Education and Commissioner have come up with, or commissioners, we'll go back a few, came up with this takeover without any design of a dismount. The most frustrating thing is you have a school committee, and I do know the players on the school committee, and I do know that it can get frustrating, and I do know they have no power. That's why I don't serve on the school committee anymore. I'm a town councilor. But the frustration continues that when you put a plan together in the private sector or in our town budget. Our manager is held feet to the fire, and the councilors, department heads. We come up with a plan, and there's always a time frame to all of our plans. When it doesn't happen in that time frame, there are issues. And what's happening now is we've got a little over 1,900 students. I'm a guy that you can give me a data package like this, and I really do know what it means and what it says. And you can make data say anything you want or make the numbers dance, because there's always a story behind the numbers. Over the years, we learned this. So I sit here and I say, okay, you're presenting a data book of progress. So right away, as an elected official, as they say, Scott, when you get elected, you have to have oversight and accountability. From the state standard, this disciplinary standard, educational standard, and all these standards that were thrown down the town's throat many years ago, you're not held to the same standard, because I know what's going on. I hear it on a daily basis. What I feel like right now with the frustration is with 1,900 students, think about this. This is an all-time low for Southbridge, numbers-wise. It reminds me of the Bloomberg campaign. The money we're spending, much like he does, and he gets 5 delegates, and we get a little progress. In the private sector, it wouldn't happen. In the governmental sector, it happens. People like myself and a lot of the council is rotten to stop that mentality. Let's produce. This council stood behind, long before I got on the council, with money and extras over the minimum school expenditure. I am trying to see a vision of some sort of transfer with all of the management that's been put in place, which, if it's working, it's your job to make it work. When the day comes to hand off, the word you said earlier, sustainable. I'm not sure it's sustainable. Matter of fact, with all my experience, I don't think it's sustainable. If you're here in 5 years or 7 years and stuff, I hope we can have this discussion again, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're right. I want good schools. We deserve good schools. And I think that we can't quit. There's no going back. So moving forward, I really want to meet with the commissioner. I can sit here and talk to you till the end of time. The commissioner and the Department of Education can change criteria, move the chess pieces, and create a model that can hand this off to the Southbridge School District again, if it wants to. That's the big question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Council Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Just a couple things to the receiver. So there's a couple other towns in Massachusetts that are under receivership as well. How long have they been under receivership, and what do you believe, if you have that information, how much longer is it going to take for them?
I don't know the exact number of years, but Holyoke is under receivership, but Lawrence was the first district that was placed into receivership, and I believe it was about 7 years before they kind of transitioned into a board that's both appointed some local folks and state appointed, and that board hired a superintendent, so they're in a slightly different governance model. Holyoke is in the same governance model as we are. I think they're a few years ahead of us. But I'm not intimately knowledgeable of what's going on in either of the districts, to be quite honest. But Holyoke is certainly a little ahead, and Lawrence is the first.
Okay. And, you know, I see with the implementation that you're doing at the kindergarten level, and I understand the concept totally, and I fully support what you're doing. And, you know, we all wish it could take just a couple years and this model be put into place, but we know that I believe that's not a reality, and it's going to take some time before we get to where we actually need to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Villar, go ahead, Councilor Dan.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Dr. Villar, is it safe to say that in the aggregate, we're finding more success in the elementary grades in the aggregate?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Is it safe to say then that in terms of the public having concerns about the amount of time it may take for the receivership to continue, that we need to see these kids progress through the grade levels, work their way up through the curriculum in a vertical sense, and see that things work their way out in terms of graduation rates changing down the road?
Yeah, it absolutely is important for that to happen, to get the large numbers of students to be successful. And I would point out, we still have students who are super highly successful in our secondary schools. You heard from some of them this evening. So it's not like all doom and gloom in the upper grades, but to get the larger percentages of kids doing well, it takes a whole system, and it takes from kindergarten on up, and you got to build each year.
So it takes time.
It certainly does.
Okay, and we have to work the children up from the lower grades into the upper grades.
It's an important process. We're developing staff capacity while students are learning as they move. So I think it's going to, like I said, 5 to 7 years before you see measurable changes on significant assessments like the MCAS.
I'd like to say thank you for coming this evening. I appreciate the fact that you're here. I appreciate the data package that you've given us, and I certainly appreciate the fact that it is going to take time. It's frustrating that it has to take time, but I can certainly empathize with you about the fact that it will take time, and that's all we can do, one day at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Vlau, thank you for being here this evening and giving us this update. We look forward to meeting with you again when it comes to budget time. I know earlier this evening, a counselor had asked about a meeting with the commissioner, and I believe I had articulated to him, my understanding is with Senator Fatman's office has facilitated that meeting. It would be sometime in June, is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you. Having served on the school committee for about 11 years, serving 7 years as the chairman, I was intimately involved with the school district. Good, bad, good again, and then was there, had left about a year before the actual receivership took over. So I share some of the frustration from a colleague of mine up here because he served with me on that. Some of the conversations that we're having tonight are no different than conversations I had when we first started on the school committee, when I first started serving on the school committee, in regards to our students and their ability to read and the struggles that we had at that grade level. That went back 15 years. We were talking Dibbles back then. I'd never heard of it before, but became intimately involved in it. So it's great to see the growth. Our challenge, I think, for you and the community is to make sure that we do sustain that. Because that is the foundation for any student to pass a test, is the ability to read and understand what the question is. So I commend you for identifying that and working on that issue. It's interesting that the 3 towns that we're talking about that are in receivership, Lawrence, Holyoke, and Southbridge, all share the same social, economic, pretty much dynamics. And that's something I think when the state took 3 districts over and then stopped, only the state can say, why did you stop at that? To my colleagues' previous speaker's point, I don't think they really understood all the intricacies of what was going on in these districts. Said, let's take them over under the law and not have a plan for the exit. And that's nothing through you. You are working very hard with your staff, and I commend everything that you do. And that's a conversation that we have to have with the commissioner. And he's a new commissioner as well. He can't answer for Commissioner Mitchell, who took over these school districts for whatever reason. Reading those tier reports, there were a lot of good things that were happening in Southbridge at that time that we could have probably worked very hard with, a partnership with the Department of Ed, but they didn't want to hear us. So we are in this position that we are today. But it is about working together with you to come up with an exit strategy. I commend you for the fact that you're here 2 years, that you have stayed the course, and the challenges that you have with staff to make sure that we retain those. Because from many years, that unless we have the stability at the top, we're not going to have, I've said this over and over again, if the top end of our system is not stable, there is not a teacher or staff member that's going to buy into anything that any receiver or commissioner is going to sell. because they're just going to say, okay, they're here selling this program today, but they're not going to be here. So with that, thank you for being here. I do find my meetings with you very enlightening. You do share a wealth of knowledge. I would hope that anybody that's on the school committee takes those opportunities also to meet with you individually to go through those, because, and any fellow council or even citizens, you've offered for them to come to your office, and you've said that publicly at meetings. So I commend you for getting out in the community, and we'll work with you in the future to continue this mission to improve our school district. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Barr.
Again, thank you very much.
Do you need to, we'll give you a second to take that. Agenda item 8, Citizens Forum. Is there anyone from the audience that wishes to address the town council this evening on anything that's not on the agenda? State your name and your address, please.
Good evening, Council. Kevin Buxton, 28 Columbus Avenue. It's been a while since I've spoke to the council. I've still keep up to date by watching the meetings at home. One of the things that brought me into tonight is the subject of methane gas as it pertains to the landfill gas collection and project. I'm going to say that they've had the engine running, generating electricity for 4 to 5 years. Prior to that, the term methane refers to natural gas. Even the production drilling of natural gas, the gas that comes up out of the ground is not methane. It's a whole combobulation of gases. That gas has to be processed. It gets processed into methane, which is the nice blue flame that comes out of our stove at home. It's safe to burn inside the house. The process of taking out the other elements within the gas that comes out of the ground is where you get your propane, butanes. Propane is gas. You may think similar to your stove. The only difference is you don't run a gas grill with propane inside a building. The similar situation is with landfill gas. One of the first things when Casella got involved, 2005, 2007, was the capture of that gas. The gas of any kind, whether it be methane, whether it be butane, propanes, or landfill gas, is highly regulated by the EPA. Why? Because it's 10 times more harmful to our environment than even carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. Methane is dangerous because it's lighter than air. It'll float to the top of our atmosphere and there interact with the radiation from the sun and can change into various ozone depleting elements. So it's highly regulated. The engine and the flare system at the landfill was not put there because of a green technology element. It's that all gas needs to be captured, it needs to be burnt, carbonated. So the engine may have been there for 4 or 5 years. One of the first jobs Casella had when they went up there was capture, because the old section of the landfill had not been capped yet. So they threw a temporary cap on that. Now you're seeing the final process over the next year and a half or so is the final cap going over the whole thing. It all has to be captured. You can't just pile up trash and let it vaporize itself into the atmosphere. Not acceptable. And these regulations say, at the very least, you need to flare it. Now, up at the landfill, there's 2 types of flares. There's an exposed flare, which you might see if you go up there on a night, seeing a blue flame burning off in the distance. And there's an enclosed flare. The enclosed flare is just a candle flare with an enclosure around it. One of the advantages of the enclosed flare is actually, technically, you could draw that heat. You could use that heat to heat a building. However, the use of the drying the gas, capturing the gas, bringing all the collection wells together, there is, like Mr. Pawlowski said last week, there's not just methane gas in there. There's other gases that need to be done. There's a system of 2 large boxes that the gas gets drawn through the collection pipes and through these boxes. There's a proprietary medium in there that, as the gas flows through, removes the hydrogen sulfide. The hydrogen sulfide is always that gas that is referred to as rotten egg smell. One of the reasons it's a rotten egg smell, if you're ever in a swamp, I don't know how often you find yourself in a swamp, but methane gas is a natural product of any organic matter decomposing. So when you're walking through a swamp and you see those little bubbles come up, that's just natural methane. The material, the organic material in an anaerobic environment, which means not exposed to oxygen, generates methane. This sulfur treat system removes the hydrogen sulfide, and then it basically goes into what is a diesel engine, a gas diesel engine. Mr. Pawlowski is also right in the fact that it's engineered for landfill gas because it is highly corrosive. Just like I said, when the gas that comes out of the ground goes to your stove, it has to go through a refining process. If you just took that gas out and sent it through your stove, first of all, you wouldn't be able, it would make you sick. There'd be a lot of carbon and sparks, and it wouldn't burn that pretty blue flame. So the engine has to be specially designed to burn that specific fuel, which is landfill gas. It is a way of disposing the gas with a benefit. In other words, the generation of electricity. The amount of electricity, whether it's viable or not, it's one or the other. If they weren't running that engine to generate electricity, it would be going to the candle flares that are burning up there 24/7. As a member of the Landfill Oversight Committee, which I've been on, I'm a charter member, we've always been aware of landfill gas and what they do with it and what they're doing. As a matter of fact, if anybody has more questions about the landfill, on Thursday, 5:30, we have our quarterly landfill meeting. If you're not familiar with the Landfill Oversight Committee, it's because we do not make a big hoopla, or all we basically do is we're concerned citizens with oversight of the landfill. Like I said, I'm glad the council has found this point of interest, and I wish there was more interest generated long before, when you first got into the landfill business. Would have been a good time to have more in-depth knowledge and education. I'm glad that we've finally come to this point where we're capping that situation. I don't know where the rumor came that we would ever consider it again, because I think we learned our lesson, or those of us who are involved in the process have learned their lesson.
Do you have anything further? Because you're over your time limit. I gave you a lot of time. I've given you, I've been gracious. You had 3 minutes, and I've kind of.
If you want,
so.
you can come to the landfill meeting, and right. I'm on the committee, so I don't hold the clock.
Do you have a quick follow-up question? Because we don't get in debates on citizens forum, but go ahead.
I'll wait for his meeting.
No, if you have a question that public may want to know.
I was just going to ask, since he is on the Landfill Oversight Committee, I've seen a lot more trucks going up there, and I was wondering why. What are they doing?
All right, I don't think that's a question for the landfill oversight. It should go to the town manager's office. Thank you, Council. If he has an answer, he can give it to the town manager's office, but that should be good directly to the town manager.
To the best of my knowledge, it's all capping.
Yep,
Thank you. Any other citizen that wishes to address the council? Any other citizen? Seeing none? Moving forward. Item 9, vote to confirm the appointment of Keith Roberts of Southbridge as the District Veterans Service Director, effective immediately for an indefinite period. Is
So
there?
moved.
Second.
Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very proud to recommend Keith Roberts for the position of District Veterans Service Director. And first, I guess, before I say another word, I want to thank him for his 24 years of service in the Army National Guard. We appreciate all you've done for our country. Keith is a tremendous candidate for this particular position. As I said, 24 years in the active service, 14 years in recruiting, and after the first 10 years, he came back to Southbridge. He's a longtime Southbridge resident. Actually came back to Southbridge to do recruiting there and has been working with mentoring and guiding our youth on options available to them in the military. Has been working with families to help families as it relates to benefits. This is a gentleman that has a tremendous amount of experience in the type of job that we're actually giving him here tonight. So I think it's going to be a tremendous benefit for the town. Since 2017, he's been what's in a group called Citizen Soldier for Life Career Readiness Counselor. So again, the emphasis on getting people who are coming back, or I guess even going in, both directions on career readiness to make sure that they're ready for either life in the military or life out of the military. Been involved with budget development and financial readiness, education, employment outreach. One of the things that, frankly, I really enjoyed in the conversation we had when we went through the interview process, and Keith was by far the top quality candidate of the 3 people we interviewed, was the recognition that as a recruiter, he gets out in the public and he actually recruits people in. And one of the things that we have is we have veterans who come back from the military, and some of them come right in and they look for benefits. Others do not, and are not aware of typical benefits that might be available to them. And it's great to see someone who came out of the military and stayed in that field even as he came out working with veterans. And I'm looking forward to him doing more of that recruitment to make sure that those who are entitled to specific benefits will be able to get them. And I know he's already involved across the different military branches. I think he's going to be a tremendous asset. I'm very proud to bring him forward. And he is here after the vote. I appreciate, Mr. Chairman, if he could come up and just be congratulated.
Councilor Lazo, recommendation from your subcommittee, please.
Our recommendation tonight was unanimous for Keith Roberts for the appointment to the Veterans Agent position.
Any further discussion? Okay. And speaking with Keith earlier this evening, I found him very well qualified, and looking at his resume, certainly is well-versed in some of the issues with veterans. And earlier this evening, he commented, one of the questions from one of my fellow councilors was, what was one of the things that he thought that he could bring to the table in outreach for veterans? And I'll let him elaborate after the vote and ask him what his thoughts were. But it's a great recommendation. This council fought very hard to make sure that we had a Southbridge resident for this position, knowing that we do have qualified veterans in our community. So it's great to have this individual in front of us. Anything further? Councilor Lazo?
Just a quick second. Not only is this a fantastic candidate, as the town manager said, if you look at this job description and you look at what he's done to fit the job description, outstanding. He's going to have a tough act to follow with our longtime veterans agent. I thank him for his service, but I think what we have here is what we call in football a blue chipper. That's what we're going to call him, because he is outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would be remiss in not thanking Mike Trombley, who's retiring next week. I'm sure we'll have you back at another town council meeting to recognize your achievements after your retirement. But I'd like to thank you for all the work that you've done for that organization throughout the town, not just for veterans, but volunteering to help other towns as well when they were in need. I know we had conversations about this when we passed the reorganization of the department. So congratulations on your retirement, and look forward to having you back at another later date when you're settled into retirement, perhaps. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to make one more brief comment. My interview team was made up of Mike Trombley, our veterans agent, and Kim Farron. I just want to thank them both. It's great to have people that are very experienced in the process. And Mike, your knowledge was invaluable in terms of interviewing candidates, so I really appreciate all your comments, all the work you've done on behalf of the town. It really has been a pleasure working with you, and I obviously wish you the very best in retirement, and hopefully we'll see you, long after the retirement, but thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Unanimous, all present. Congratulations, Keith.
Congratulations, welcome to the team. Thank you very much.
Introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Really, I'd just like to say that it's going to be an absolute honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to continue my 24 years of service by serving the veterans of not just our community, but the community of Charlton, Auburn, and Oxford. And I look forward to being able to do that by working with Mike, and hopefully he can set me off on the right path, and I'll learn as much of his expertise as possible before taking the ball and running with it.
Thank you. Any
Thank
questions? Seeing none? Oh,
Just
Councilor
one
Lazo?
comment. Mr. Roberts, the only thing I can tell you is thank you for your service.
A pleasure.
This resume was absolutely impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations, Keith. We look forward to working with you. Budgets are already done, but he'll have to defend the budget, right, in front of us? Very good. Items 10, 11, and 12. These are to vote to confirm the town council chairman's appointment of 3 individuals to the town manager search committee to begin immediately and expire at the town of appointment of a new town manager. 3 individuals this evening. Former councilor David Langevin, who chaired this council and also served on a town manager search committee. Peter Canoia, the president of the Big Bunny Market and McNuck's Fresh Marketplace. He's been the president of that from June of 1980. He's worked there from June of 1980 to the present. He's also a partner in Duncan Foam Car Wash. Also, he serves as the chairman and board of directors of the Southbridge Business Partnership. The third person is Bonnie LaSavio. Bonnie is a longtime resident of the town of Southbridge. She served as the executive director of the United Way of Southbridge, Sturbridge, and Charlton from June of 2003 to January of 2012. She was then the vice president of human resources and business partner for Cornerstone Bank from January of 2012 to February of 2019. She then left that position in February of 2019 through January of 2020, where she served as the Director of Human Resources for the Worcester Art Museum, and she's currently serving as a Chief Operations Officer of the Worcester Art Museum. So I thank those individuals. I had many conversations with different residents throughout town. Very difficult to find a mix of quality individuals to serve on the search committee. So I would ask that town council support the town council chairman's appointments of these individuals. So item 10, vote to confirm the town council chairman's appointment of David Langevin to the town manager search committee to begin immediately and expire at the time of appointment of a new town manager. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Council Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was hoping you'd have discussion before this, so I apologize. I wanted to know, did you get a lot of interest for this committee? Was it advertised? And
The way the charter says it says the town council chairman will seek out. It's the way it's read.
True. Fair
It says it
enough.
seeks out, and I sought out individuals that I knew.
Did you get
in the past.
approached by a lot of people then?
I had several people approach me as well, so yes.
Okay.
Yep. So, I mean, that may be something in the future charters you may want to revisit as to how to go, but it is the town charter does say the town council chairman will seek out. So that's what I did. And I know people like to come up here and say the charter says. So I read that charter, and I think those individuals do have experience in high-level, seeking out individuals. Council Lazo?
Just a comment on the process. This has been in the charter since inception. The town council chairman appoints the town manager's search. I served as the chairman back in the 80s, and I was in the same seat, and we had to appoint the committee. You go around, you're talking to a lot of people, and you have a lot of ideas, but it's ultimately the chairman that appoints the search committee.
Councilman?
Thank you. Just to follow up with that, I should have just rephrased my words. Did you have a lot of interest in this and not, because I do know what the charter states, so I stated it incorrectly. So my apologies.
No, that's
Thank
okay.
you.
No, it wasn't, the question about following the charter wasn't referred to you. It's, people that like to say afterwards that we don't follow charter, that council doesn't, and we do the best we can to follow the charter. Councilor Steves, did you have it? Oh, yeah. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous vote present. Vote to confirm the town council chairman's appointment of Peter Canoia to the town manager search committee to begin immediately and expire at the time of appointment of a new town manager. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on Peter Canoia? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous vote present. Item 12, vote to confirm the town council chairman's appointment of Bonnie LaSavio to the town manager search committee to begin immediately and expire at the time of appointment of a new town manager. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
Discussion on Bonnie. All those in favor? Unanimous vote present. Next items are police department transfers. Chief, if you want to come up, because I know these did not go to the town council subcommittee first. And as Councilman has stated, there was conversations between herself, Yvonne, and myself as to what it was strictly the chair of the PPP subcommittee call, and she did move that forward to us directly. So if we have questions, the chief is here tonight. So item 13, vote to approve a transfer of $7,000 from salary account number 001-210.511000 to uniforms account number 001-210.519200 for academy uniforms and gear for the new recruits for the police department. Is there a motion?
Second.
Discussion. Chief, if you could elaborate first, and maybe if you want to outline the reason for all the transfers, the process, and why the need for the transfers that are relative to all of them. And then if anybody has specific questions to that particular line item, we can discuss it in further depth.
Yep.
So overall encompassing why the transfers, and then each item afterwards.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Mr. Town Manager. For the first transfer tonight, the $7,000, our original budget for this is usually about $55,000. We're about $51,200 spent immediately on clothing allowance. That's a contractual agreement for 38 police officers. Then there were a couple of vest failures this year, not the actual Kevlar, but the fabric that we had to replace, which are unexpected, so I couldn't budget for them. And then we had 4 police recruits who started the academy a couple of weeks ago, and some of the equipment, we try to swap equipment from old recruits to new recruits coming in the door, but unfortunately, we can't cover all the costs of the equipment. So this transfer of $7,000 will get us through this line item till June 30th. The money is coming from, just so the council knows as a point of reference, my salary account. I originally had 4 police recruits scheduled to start. They were budgeted for July 1st of 2019. They did not start until a few weeks ago, so I had that extra salary in my budget from July 1st until February 24th. That's why there's money in that 5110 salary account.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti, you had a question?
Yes. Back in October, when we voted to hire 4 new police officers, at the time you said you were fully funded to hire these police officers. And I don't have a problem supporting funding for their uniforms, but to have it come out of the salaries, since we voted on that in October, you have shifted about $95,000 from the police salaries to other items in the police department. And I know I'm a little slow, and I'm kind of like learning politics as I go along here, but to me, that's a classic shift, and really, I don't really appreciate it. After tonight, you will have shifted $110,000 from those 4 police officers to other items within the police department. Like I said, I feel like I'm in a no-win situation if I say, use the money for the police officers. Oh, well, we need the money for other supplies, but then eventually you're going to come back to us asking for more money for those police officers, and if I say no, then I'm going to be accused of not supporting police officers. So this one I don't have a problem with. I realize they need gear, but like I said, you said in October that we were fully funded for this, and now it turns out we're not fully funded for it, so I don't know who's doing your budget, but probably should do a better job of it, and just come forward. If you need the money in your budget, come forward with it in the budget.
Well,
So-
if I could, through you,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman, I'll be happy
Chief.
to elaborate on that. You're more than welcome to come and help me do my budget if you think that's what I need. But if you think I can forecast the public safety needs for this community during a fiscal budget, I'll come in and ask for $7 million this year, then I'll never have to come back and ask for another transfer. What I truly need to run this department, I don't come forward out of respect for this town's finances. I sit with the town manager and the finance director, I just did 2 weeks ago, every single budget season, and I say, Mr. Town Manager, I'm going to need X amount of dollars to fund this. No, Shane, you can't have that. Believe it or not, the police department does not get everything that they ask for. To run that department the way it needs to be run, I would need several $100,000 more, but out of respect for the community, I always find ways to shift things, as you say, and move things around, which I don't take that as an insult. I think that's smart management. I don't come to the council and ask for more money. I find it within my existing budget. It's just not in the proper account.
Chief, could you elaborate? I know we had many conversations, or even before I got on council last year, that the goal of the town, of the town manager through council was to make sure we took a look at every single item and talk about making sure that they were funded at the appropriate level. And I do know that at budget time, some of it was, well, we know it's going to come, we'll figure it out when it arrives. So the council, when it budget, and we may go through this year, Councilor Marchetti, we're welcome to have healthy debate about budgets, trust me. We did have those conversations about not funding this, or that we may have to come back for money. Is that not correct?
Correct, Mr. Chairman, and I'll say this too, out of respect to all the council. That is the first conversation we've ever had. My predecessor never was able to have that conversation with any of the council because no one wanted to hear it when he would come and ask for more money. This council in particular has said, what do you really need to run? What do you need in certain accounts so you don't have to do transfers? But I can't forecast what's going to happen in the community, what public safety issues are going to happen. We get one false bomb call at one of our schools, that's $10,000 in overtime that I can't predict. We have one serious crime, a robbery, a homicide, that's $10,000, $15,000 in overtime over a course of a couple days that I can't predict. So I do the best I can do to forecast what's going to happen, but I don't have a crystal ball where I can shake it and guess exactly what I need. I look at the history, I go back 5 years or so, every budget cycle, I average what we spent from each account over 5 years, and that's how I come up with a number when I come and see you guys for more funding.
Thank you. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Chief Woodson. I just want to say I think you're doing a fabulous job in that police department. And if I could, I would support at least 4 more officers for you, just by myself. But I can't, unfortunately. But that's the breaks. And you do the best you can, the budget you have, and the people you have. So I highly appreciate you coming to us and finding the money within your budget. And I thank you and your department for all you do.
Thank you. And I might add too, Mr. Chairman, I'll be back again. Council Marchetti is correct. I'm certain between now and June 30th, there will be other issues that occur at my department that require me to come here and ask for transfers. So you can keep that total running because it will be higher soon, if I was a betting man.
And just for the public and fellow councilors, we had this conversation at the beginning of the year when it came to this transfer policy.
Mm-hmm.
Had we done the policy that was in place at the time that did not go, these items would never come to council because the town manager had authority to transfer money up to 30% of that budget. So your salary account is how much?
About a little over $3 million.
For just salaries? Yep. $3 million. That policy had that the town manager could transfer up to 30% of that budget.
$300,000.
Which is quite a bit of money. So this is why we're having the drill down, and I call it micromanagement, but we're getting a better understanding of what our department heads are budgeted at, and when we come into the budget season, we may have even better debate as to how to make sure that appropriate line items are funded. I share your frustration, yes. Those 4 police officers, we did budget it in July, and I know if the chief could have, and this is a statewide issue, if the chief could have gotten them into an academy on July 1 or shortly after July 1, we would have to be sitting somewhere else and saying, where are we going to get the money to make sure that he can continue to operate the way he has? It's only through the fact that we could not get them into an academy course, and the chief has been very upfront about this, that we have the ability within his budget to take care of this without going to outside sources to fund this. But I'm sure over the budget season, we will have further debate on this. Council Leslie?
Yeah, budgeting is an art. You start out with this budget that we all agree on, where department heads all pool in, and the manager and everybody that wants and needs the community. You've heard roads and sidewalks, schools, police, fire. The transfer policy that used to be used showed zero transparency. And I think to your point, and to fellow councilors, this discussion's healthy. I like this. The taxpayers can watch and see what we're doing with the money by transferring. If you don't want to transfer the money, nobody's going to take it personal. You don't want to do it. I get it. For me, when you turn around and think your officers are going in at this date, you can't get them in for a year, it's going to leave a surplus in some of those accounts. This year's been a lean year on snow. Hopefully, maybe some of those accounts will have extra money to do other things that you wouldn't normally do in this budget year. But that's your call. It has to come here for us to transfer it and to say yes or no. Personally, on this one here, I'm voting yes. We need these, the next items coming up. I do understand what Councilor Marquette's saying, that in a perfect world, every line item would check out to what the line item is. But I've never seen that happen in the 35 years I've been involved. It's always like nailing jello on a tree. Keep trying until you get it right, or at least to the best of our ability. And then at that point there, what's the outcome on the ground? Are we fighting crime? Are we putting fires out? Are we providing the services? And I have to say that we might disagree as a council on certain issues and have a floor fight. But I think the thought process is much better now than I've seen it in a long time. Thank you.
You want to respond? Okay,
Well,
Councilman McKay.
all I'm saying is that I voted for 4 police officers. Part of this money went for the town manager search committee that certainly isn't fighting crime. So all I'm saying is that I voted for police officers. And so far, I've seen, after tonight, $110,000 of that money shifted to other things. And that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Marquette, your point is well taken. And again, I supported the 4 officers as well. And again, if we could have gotten them into an academy, that $20,000 would have come out of town council reserve. So if we did nothing with this account from July 1 to February 24th, when those academy recruits started, any money not spent for those 4 recruits would have stayed in that line item and just simply gone back to probably free cash and been certified at free cash, of which we could use it somewhere else. The chief, when we discussed that transfer out of town, out of police salaries, was knowing that, hey, these people have not started yet. Dispatches had not started at that point. Best case was this was going to start July 1. We have the ability to do this outside of going to a certified free cash that we have for next year or town council reserve. I think this is a good discussion that we're having here tonight, and that this came directly here because these are the discussions that the community and the citizens don't see on a regular basis that happen in subcommittee. You know, that we have these healthy debates about processes and everything. So normally we would come up here and we just rubber stamp it because all this debate takes place. So this is a good opportunity for the citizens to see what we actually talk about in subcommittee. Is there anything further? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Vote to approve a transfer of $2,500 from salary account number 001210.511000 to accessories non-vehicle account number 001210.558700 for new radar units for the police department. Is there a motion?
Don't move.
Second.
Discussion. Chief?
This budget was originally $1,000 for FY '20. The issue here is we usually buy parts for our speed signs from this account, surveillance cameras. We always spend this account, but now we have a very active animal control officer, we'll say, and I'm also purchasing things out of this account to cover her cost. We bought dog waste dispensers. They're all over the community. That was almost $1,000. I thought I could do that. We did this a couple months ago. Now I have to purchase 2 new radar guns because they're broken beyond repair. So it was an unexpected cost. I'm looking to transfer money from salary to cover the cost to purchase 2 new radar guns.
Any further discussion on that? Council Manna?
So in the, you said non-vehicle? Is it supposed to be non-vehicular or non-vehicle?
I'm sorry.
Non-vehicular is how it's in the budget.
Okay.
It's
Because I
for-
thought he said non-vehicle, so I didn't know if it
I
was.
may have
yeah,
misspoke.
so,
I apologize.
no. I was confused.
Okay. Council Lazo?
Again, Mr. Chairman, in this instance, the citizens of Southbridge lost their radar. It's broke. You can't budget something that you didn't know was going to break. You wanted 1 more year out of that radar, maybe 2. It broke. The chief is coming in good faith in front of us. Do I like spending money? Probably not. But we have to because we need to do the job. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to echo, Chief, and your department, you really do, this is a item, the radar units are very needed because I know that you respond to a lot through council that people will bring us complaints about speed and you put units out there right away. And if you don't have the equipment to do it, there's no way to enforce and respond to those calls.
Correct.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Council Marquetti is opposed. Vote to approve a transfer of $2,000 from salary account number 001210.511000 to narcotics account number 001210.55100 for ongoing narcotics investigations for the police department. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Chief, briefly.
And if I could, if there's any questions, Mr. Chairman, I just prefer that they be done in executive session with this account number. I would say that these are for ongoing narcotics investigations. We've historically been funded since about the late 80s, about $6,000 a year for this. We've easily already exceeded that, and we will need at least $2,000 more to get us through to June 30th. Every single budget year I ask for additional money for this. It's always denied. It's been $6,000 since before I was a police officer here. But if there's specific questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I just don't want to do it in a public forum.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Council Steves?
I'll try to avoid something that's executive session. Just clarify, is this more for personnel or for equipment?
Neither. This is for more of undercover investigations, narcotic investigations.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just curious, because why wouldn't that be in the salary line?
It's, if you have specific questions and you want to postpone this to another meeting, I will call an executive session because it would be the deployment of security.
Yeah, right. And if I could, Council Steves, I'm asking for $2,000 from salary to go into another account.
Yeah, I get that.
It's not for salary.
You all set?
Yeah.
Any questions? Council Marquetti?
Just like to reiterate that I'm not opposed to this. I'm just opposed to taking it out of salaries for 4 police officers that I voted to hire, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know, I certainly understand, I'm not going to reiterate, but I hopefully, when we come to the police department budget, you take a look at those line items and ask those questions and have it defended by management. Council Steves?
Yeah, just a comment on what Councilor Marquetti said, just to clarify, is that the money's just sitting there because they're not being paid because they're not on the force yet. That's why we're doing this. That's why the money's there.
Up till February 24th.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Council Marquetti is opposed. Vote to transfer $3,000 from salary account number 001210.5511000 to auto parts account number 001210.548000 for additional auto parts required for maintenance of fleet. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Discussion, Chief?
And again, Council Chairman, Mr. Chair, this is an account, every year we overspend. Every year I've had to do transfers. Every year I get appropriated about $20,000, but I can't predict what's going to happen with cars as far as tires, engine wear, transmissions, auto parts that we purchase at CAP, Napa, Place Motors. We always spend it, and I estimate that we need about $3,000 more to get through the fiscal year.
Thank you. Set of tires for a cruiser, how much of those are going for now?
About $1,000 for 4,
And we replace them how many times? Maybe twice a year, right?
at least, yes.
I just know from my experience in law enforcement that for some reason, cruisers, no matter what you do, even in small towns, they eat up the tires. It's crazy on that. I don't know what the reason is, but you're on the road 24/7. So that's good. Any further discussion? Council Lazo?
Look at the roads they're driving on.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? You're opposed, Council?
No, I'm in favor.
Council Marquez is
I'm running
opposed. Vote to approve a transfer of $1,000 from salary account number 0012010.511000 to copy machine cost account number 00121054210 for copy machine toner. Is there a motion?
Second.
Discussion, Chief.
Again, Mr. Chair, I do the best that I can do, and we start with about $3,000 every year, but unfortunately, we had a machine that the toner was supposed to last longer. There were 2 machines, actually, and just the ink alone was $1,000. We also buy paper through the school district, other ink, other toner, and again, it's an estimate on what we're going to spend, and this year, I'm estimating that we're going to need another $1,000 to get us through the fiscal year.
Thank you. And just, Chief, I'm sure the Dudley District Court's the same as the court that I work out of. They require, what, like 4 copies, right, that you have to make to bring to court?
We use more paper than I care to admit. We're trying to go into the digital world with the courthouse now, but they still require hard copies of everything. And with the amount of arrests that we have every year, about 2,000, I can't even guess how many pages of boxes of paper that is, reams of paper.
Yep.
So again, we estimate that from year to year, depending on how busy we are. Public request also, if they're not digital, we have to send paper. It just,
Nature of the
use
business.
a lot of paper, a lot of ink, yeah, unfortunately.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Council Marquez is opposed. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Vote to approve a transfer of $140 from salary and wage part-time account number 001512.511700 to overtime account number 001.512.51300 for town clerk staff to attend emergency preparedness functional exercises. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Town Manager? I know we had a brief in.
Yeah, we had a discussion about this. This is an emergency management program that Department of Health will be doing. They need somebody from the town clerk's office to be involved in that event. It's a very minor transfer to take care of her salary.
So I just have one question, and I didn't have an opportunity to bring it up. Was there any discussion with this employee to say, hey, look, we'll give you comp time during the week that equal to the overtime, to say, hey, instead of recurring overtime, for this conversation?
I did not. That would be for Maddie to have. I approached the clerk's office, asked them if they would be willing to do some work on a Saturday, and this is what they came back at with me.
Okay. So the employee works for the town of Southbridge, the town manager's office, not just specifically for the town clerk. So right, and this is not directed to you, Andy. So, I mean, for the future, is there any conversations that we have with employees? I know we can't require them, and we have to owe them overtime, but there's other options available. We have those kind of conversations or a policy in place. Mr. Town Manager.
So through Mr. Chairman, we do that on a regular basis with a lot of different employees in their departments and give them comp time for time, but that did not occur on this particular issue.
If I may, I will be comping my department people who help me. They've agreed to come in on the Saturday, spend the hours at the clinic, and for comp time.
For comp time?
Yes.
So, Mr. Manager, this, I won't get into employee personnel right now. Okay. Any further discussion? Councilor
I
Steves?
do have a quick question. I should have asked this at the subcommittee. Is this in your budget, Andy, or is this in the town clerk's budget?
I'm sorry, I can't hear the question.
Whose budget is this in?
Is this in yours or the town
It's-
clerk's budget?
This employee will be paid out of 2 budgets for this one pay period. This is my budget to my budget.
So you're paying out of your account to the town clerk's account?
I will be paying
that expense.
This employee will get her regular pay out of the town clerk's pay, and she will get this additional pay
Through a transfer, through that transfer.
directly from my account. I won't be transferring to the clerk's account. It'll be paid out of my part-time salary account.
Okay. Council Lazo?
Well, the recommendation at subcommittee was unanimous. I would just like to say I'm voting in favor of this, but I do agree with what you're saying, Mr. Jovan, that maybe we should handle that in-house before with comp time and other options. Wouldn't hurt us. Thank you.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I do have a question, and I don't know if this can, 'cause I thought a few years ago, I heard when there was discussion with the town clerk's office and the town manager's office that those two were separate, and Maddie ran her own department. Am I right in saying that? So she doesn't report to you,
No.
in essence?
Through you, Mr. Chairman?
If I
Maddie
may.
does not report to me, but her staff technically report to me, although they mostly work with Maddie, but technically they work for me.
Okay, so is it up to you or Maddie?
Truthfully, in this situation, I wasn't even asked, but if I would have been asked, I would have considered it as an alternative, but I wasn't asked in this particular situation.
Okay, and so if I may ask, so the clinic, it's being held on a Saturday. Why on a Saturday? I don't even know what I didn't make it to this subcommittee meeting. So what is the clinic for?
The clinic is to exercise our emergency dispensing site. We are doing this by running a rabies clinic through a drive-through clinic. It's held on a Saturday because that is the day that Second Chance gave us. They do these rabies clinics on the Saturday. It's just a great opportunity to combine a function that the town regularly does anyhow with an opportunity to exercise an EDS clinic.
Thank you.
And to add on to that, the town clerk's going to be there because the opportunity to license any animals that are there that don't have a license. So that's why we have the town clerk there.
Is it the town clerk or
Or somebody from the town. Somebody
Because
from
the
the town
town
clerk.
clerk shouldn't be, I mean,
No,
she's
somebody
like
from the town clerk's
salary,
office,
so,
yeah.
okay.
I actually approached the town clerk. It's not so much part of the exercise as an opportunity for the citizens of Southbridge to have a one-stop, get them rabies, and then go straight and get them licensed at the same time, so it's not hanging over their heads. So the clerk's participation is not critical to the exercise. It is, however, a extreme convenience, I think, for the citizens of Southbridge. So I chose to at least pursue combining the two.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Council Jovan's opposed.
Thank you.
Not the concept, just so you know. Being that it's 9 o'clock, we're just going to take a quick 5-minute recess. Call this town council meeting back in session at 9:09 p.m. Agenda item 19, vote to approve the spending of the remaining Community Development Block Grant fiscal year 2018 Central Street parking lot funds, expanding the project to pave and improve Hamilton Alley.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Hold on. Back up.
Yeah, let's.
We're going to do the presentation first before you ask any questions. Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just wanted to let you know this was recommended at the subcommittee 3-1 on the 27th of February.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to make the public, and I know the councilors are aware of this because we had a long discussion in subcommittee about it, but the Central Street parking lot, as many people know, we've been working to improve that to basically help to improve the downtown climate and the business climate in the center of our community. That project is now, for the most part, has been all budgeted for, and it actually came in under budget, which is a really good sign. We use what's called CDBG block grants to do this project, so a lot of it comes through federal and state funding for this particular thing. You know, if you go over and look, you'll see a beautiful new parking lot, new lighting, a lot of new things. But there's a section of that parking lot that's kind of, I'll describe it as sort of the upper right-hand corner that is not paved, that still looks pretty bad. And one of the owners of the building, a new owner, called me up and was talking about he needed a place to put a dumpster for his building. It's obviously a commercial establishment, and he was trying to find a home for it and didn't have any space on his own land to do it. Wanted to use some parking spots. I told him that was impossible. But we really want to work with the business community downtown to, again, to improve the business climate, to attract businesses. So we started looking at how can we make those garbage containers look not quite as bad as they do. They look actually terrible over there. And also the containers are supposed to be so far away from the building to meet fire code. So that started a whole new conversation. We brought in the DPW, we brought in the CDBG folks, the Department of Economic Development. And we all worked together. We called a meeting of all the property owners over there and said, okay, what can we do to improve this situation, both to look at the parking lot, so there's more of a complete look to that project, and what can we do to deal with the garbage cans as well. And perhaps we could utilize the remaining money that's left from the CDBG project on Central Street to improve and finish off that parking lot. Now, in order to do that, our CDBG folks, economic folks, had to reach out to the state of Massachusetts to get approval for that, and they're working with the state on that issue. The business owners were very pleased that we even cared. I mean, they were actually very pleased that we took the time to meet with them as a group, go through some potential plans, and come up with a concept that was really highly discussed in subcommittee, and I'm sure they're going to talk a little bit as well tonight. The overall goal here, though, is to finalize that whole area, to really make it all consistent, make it all look good, make it all respectable, because as you know, even part of that is an area where you could have a little band or a little outdoor market. It's really designed to be utilized by the businesses for a variety of different things that will draw people to our downtown area. And I think everybody here would agree that the key to all this is to improve the downtown climate and to attract more businesses down there. With that, that kind of gives you a little bit of an overview of what we're trying to do, but I would leave the details of that to our CDBG coordinator to talk, or our economic development coordinator, which is, okay, CDBG coordinator, to give you the specific details.
Peg, good evening.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you. I just want to quickly point you to a few slides we have this evening. Chairman, if I could just walk through a couple of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you for teeing up the agenda item, Town Manager. We have until June 30 to spend these funds. You have to ask DHCD 3 months in advance for permission before your grant ends. Otherwise, the funds go back to the state. As you can see here, this is a picture of the alley. You have our beautiful new sidewalk and pavers, and you'll notice it extends right into a patchwork of paving and pavers that are popping up.
Can I just ask you to expand that so we can see it bigger on the screen?
Sure, and you also have it within your packets. I don't know how clearly it came out because it may have been printed in black and white. So let me go ahead and just play.
Oh, okay.
Is that helpful for you?
Thank you. That's much better. Thank you.
Is that a little better? I just want to now point out, you have within your packets also the money that's being encumbered. You started with $619,000 for the construction. Technically speaking, you started with $605,000. You then moved money over for additional engineering. When your phase 2 came in too high, I want to commend the town on going with the recommended strategy of breaking out your phase 2, phase 3 with additional engineering. That brought your total budget up to $619,000. Your strategy worked in your favor when the phase 2 and phase 3 both came in under budget, and now the site furnishings came in under budget. You now have approximately $112,000. I rounded down because that's encumbering. I'd rather see that money stay inside of the encumbered, and so I said you have $111,000 remaining. Heather was gracious enough through all the team's effort to come up with the design, which you were provided within your packets. It's $115,000, and so what we hope is that we can go out to bid for somewhere around that number to be able to get the remaining work done. As we all know with bids, there are variables, and so we would ask that you might consider making a motion that would take into consideration that the cost estimate is a little higher than what the encumbered allows. So Councilor Adams, I don't know if you want to speak to
I will in a
Chairman,
minute.
yeah.
I will in a minute.
But that, so that, if that helps, you have the 111,000 remaining. I hope that's very clear why. It's all good news, obviously. And you have the 111, you do have miscellaneous funds that have come in due to deferred payment loans through your housing rehab over the years that you could access should the amount of the bid come in over the 111. My fear is if you don't create a buffer this evening within your motion, you're not going to have time to come back to town council to be able to make a motion for additional funds and us complete the project in time to be able to use it.
Thank you. Gentleman that was at the podium has left for the evening. I didn't ask him if he wanted to come up, but he left. So, Councilor Adams, did you have something first? Or Councilor Marquetti?
Okay, since getting elected to the town council, I've been critical of the town's spending priorities. I didn't vote for the funding for the final downtown Central Street parking lot. Everyone knows the town officials allocated more than $1 million in community development block grants for that parking lot for downtown, and I called it misguided priorities, and I stand by that. Residents want improved roads and sidewalks. That's what they tell me all the time. Even Councilor Lazo commented on improvements to our roads tonight. They don't want an overpriced parking lot downtown. Now, we have $186,000 left over from this community grant, and town officials want to use that money to pave an alley next to the Central Street parking lot to provide better access to some dumpsters. So give me a break. There are some urgent improvements required in town. I think we should use the money to install sidewalks and a guardrail on the west side of Morris Street from about Maria Avenue down to the Morris Street Field entrance. This will improve pedestrian safety for families and children and senior citizens who presently walk on Morris Street to get to the field or the senior center. And I will add that according to the documentation that I received, the town owns the center of that alley, but not the driveway or the area where those dumpsters are now sitting. Those areas belong to the abutters. We have over 100 families that live up around the Morris Street area that use that field all the time, but instead, town officials are proposing what I call another subsidy for a handful of businesses downtown. I don't have a problem being business-friendly. I hear that all the time, we have to be business-friendly. But as councilors, we also need to be resident-friendly as well. And we have to look out for their needs. And the town council gets final approval on this. And I would ask that we spend this money on sidewalks and guardrails on Morris Street to make it safer for pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you. Again, I want to stress here, when I came into Southbridge, the Economic Development Authority was working on this project. They had, I believe they had gotten a grant to develop the plan, but there was no money to do the actual project. And I met with the Economic Development Authority, and we discussed the importance of this particular project as it relates to economic development as part of a downtown strategy to enhance economic development opportunities, to clean up downtown, and to help the business community. Like it or not, parking is a huge issue, and the appearance of downtown is a huge issue as it relates to economic development. It really is critical. Economic development, like it or not, it is a big part of the tax base, and anything you can do to improve economic development takes some of that pressure off the tax base, off the residential tax base, and it's really, really critical. We had decided back, God, must be almost 4 years ago, that we would use CDBG funding for this particular project. And for the most part, I'm going to say it, and there may be objections to it, the project has went pretty well on a lot of issues. There's been issues of weather and timing and some issues with the particular paving company, and the fact that when we put the project out for a bid, we didn't get bids and the price we had to split it out. So this project is delayed. It's behind the original schedule we had, but I still believe that for the town, this is a really positive project for the town. And in fact, I think when we next look at how we're going to improve Main Street and eventually deal with some of the other streets, South Streets and other, I think we are trying now to deal with roads, and this year you're going to see some more money going into the road areas. So I understand the frustration. I understand that parking lots cost some money, but overall, I think that this is a good investment in the future of the town of Southbridge, and really think that the council should support this.
Thank you. Council Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, thank you, Peg, for the presentation this evening and for coming to subcommittee as well. We had extensive conversation about this project in subcommittee, as you know. We talked, this is town-owned property. I believe we did talk about that the night of subcommittee. There's also a part of this that's a liability issue for the town because of the way that this parking lot is right now, the shape it's in, correct?
Correct. I would defer to the DPW director.
Thank you.
You are correct. There's very deteriorated panels of existing walkway that are sidewalk conditions that would need to be addressed, if not with these funds, would need to be addressed with other town funds. Likely out of my department, so I have to say we've already put some patches down in that area because it had the degradation was so bad, but there's concrete that needs to be jackhammered out and removed because it's completely deteriorated after 20 years of having salt put on it and not being really in the right areas to be used. I will say that there's a survey that was done as part of this project, and different areas previous when the original designs, parts of that parking lot are owned by the town, parts of it are owned by by the private businesses. But where those dumpsters are going is owned by the town. I've seen the survey, I've seen the transfers of the property. It's very hard to look at the plans and understand where they are, but I have looked at them myself and read the deeds and looked at it. It definitely, there are parts of this that are owned by the towns and parts of this are owned by private property. The sidewalks are owned by us. Where the worst conditions of the parking lot are owned by us. We need to address it, whether we use these funds or some other funds in the future, it will have to be addressed.
Thank you, Heather. If I can just continue. Thank you once again. I do believe that there's also possibility of possibly leasing some of the space for the dumpsters as well. I fully support this project. I believe it's a good usage of these funds, and anxious to get this project done and behind us, as I'm sure you are. Thank you.
Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to throw some stuff out there. The easements. How many easements are there?
We would be looking at getting temporary easements from 3 of the different businesses. And the temporary easements would be to do work and grading work and blend the parking lot together so it would be more seamless.
Okay, so also this was part of this, probably for Peg or Rosemary, but this alleyway was already part of the original plan for the Central Street parking lot, right? So let me ask you this question now. Something that was brought up at the subcommittee level was we have until June 30th to actually spend this fiscal year 2018 CDBG funds. Let's just say we went out there and we went down to Morris Street and we wanted to build the sidewalk and we wanted to use this funds. Would you have to reapply those funds? Reapply for those funds for a different scope of work?
Yes, it's called reprogramming your money. You would have to go out for an amendment through DHCD, which is a time-consuming process.
And how long would that take?
My best estimate, based on the 2 extensions that we've requested, probably a month. Is that fair?
So then we have to go out to bid at the same time, just to do that project.
And you can't, you could go, right, you could start the bid process, you couldn't award until you received permission from DHCD to commit any funds.
And there's a possibility of them saying no.
Correct.
So we lose $112,000 right off the bat. When this project was already part of it, obviously there were some fiscal funds, and we're going to probably have to amend this motion down the road just because of the bid process, just to make sure we're safe on it. But if you look on your paperwork, there's about $75,000 of miscellaneous funds on there. That is from commercial rehab, I believe. Housing rehab. That is kind of out there that we could utilize those funds as well to cover the $115,000 cost. Or I think you guys wanted to go up to about $130,000 just for the bid process itself. One thing that was brought up at the subcommittee, just so everybody's aware, we did bring that up. We did bring Morris Street up. We did bring the guardrails. We brought up the sidewalk project. How much was the sidewalk project? Let's just say where to do it.
I don't have my numbers right in front of me, but I believe it was over 200,000.
It was $240,000. Was that with the guardrail?
I actually think it wasn't with the guardrail. We didn't include guardrail.
It was not. So we're talking about a project that's close to $300,000 for a sidewalk when we already have problems within our town to replace some of our sidewalks. Now, I will say this, the subcommittee did make it very clear that we had no problem looking at the guardrails down the road, especially with that extra $60,000 or $50,000. But from my understanding, since that subcommittee meeting, that has gone to the DPW subcommittee. Or maybe.
It's on the, I believe it's on the next agenda for DPW subcommittee, because the last meeting that we had, a lot of these items was, we were under a little bit of a time constraint, so we decided to put that on to the next meeting.
Was that the guardrails and the sidewalks?
I think it was a discussion, just like we had at this meeting, of different options. I don't think there's any vote on that. It's just a discussion about what potentially could happen in the future, very similar to what we've already presented at this one, just of how much guardrails would, and how much this would cost.
So the Planning and Development Subcommittee, just so the councilors are aware, had no problem taking a look at the guardrail process. But now that it's been taken out of P&D and going to the DPW, I'll let that happen. There was a motion to amend it, which was made by Councilor Marchetti, seconded by Councilor Daniel, but it failed 1-3. So it was addressed. I also want to make a point here that it's just not the businesses in town. You also have apartments above there, correct? So you have regular residents that use that alley constantly, use that parking lot constantly, that use that whole area constantly. So this is a no-brainer to me. But I will, obviously, whatever the chair wants, but I will make an amendment in a few minutes.
Okay, well, further discussion first.
Got
Got Council Manna, then Council Steves, then Council Lazo, and then back to Council Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So just a couple things. I support what you're doing down there for the parking lot. Years ago, when a parking lot was proposed, I didn't support parking lot because I just didn't see the need for it, and I thought walking within our small downtown area. Anyways, we can go. I don't want to get into that. So I do support that. But I don't know if the next comment that I feel I need to make is appropriate here, if I should wait till Councilor's Forum. So I think I'm just going to wait to Councilor's Forum for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, to follow up on what Councilor Marchetti asked about, I wanted to ask you a quick question, I guess probably Heather. How much, I know the project that you're proposing, and I wasn't able to make that meeting, but the project that he was proposing would be complete construction, I'm assuming, correct? Because there's not much up there. How much would it cost, how far would this money go to replace existing sidewalks? I'm thinking like Main Street specifically, because that's in terrible shape already. And that's the CDBG zone too.
Main Street sidewalks are being addressed with our Main Street project, and I'm not.
I mean the section going toward the Rotary. That section actually.
Hold on.
I'm just going to get a feeling for how far that would go to if you're replacing sidewalk rather than building a new.
I would have to. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, honestly, Gus. It depends on how wide the sidewalk is and what exactly we need to do for replacement. But, I mean, $100,000 will go far, but I also know we have sidewalk money that we have scheduled to do work down on Main Street with that sidewalk money that we already have. So,
okay.
It could be, but it's also not part of the target area, so you're still talking the same process that where you're talking about putting sidewalks on Morris Street.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to think. I'm not necessarily opposed to the project. I'm just trying to balance things off the top.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that to tell you what stretch of sidewalk would need to be replaced, how much of it. Could it cover that cost? Obviously. Could the additional funds that they have in program that we haven't designated, that funding could also be used for that. I can get you numbers by linear foot at some point.
Okay.
Are you all set?
Yeah, for the moment.
Council Lazo?
Yeah, through the chair, Peg, thank you very much tonight for your presentation. I am in full support of this paving of what they call the alleyways. I think if you look at the history with all of the alleyways in Southbridge between the tall buildings, there were other projects that were done through grants where they put brick pavers between the buildings and they put lighting up on the buildings and they lit the alleyways for a reason. That's where most of your drug and crime were back in the day. So along with a lot of downtown back in the day when it was an all-American city, that was a lot of the stuff that was going on, was to try and create foot traffic. So you didn't walk down the street, you could actually go from municipal parking lot to municipal parking lot, from business to business, from apartment to apartment without walking 20 miles. So the reason why I'm in favor of this, and everybody knows I've been quite critical about this project, not because it shouldn't have been done, it just didn't work out real well. The performance can be questioned. We inherited it, well, I inherited it as a counselor, but I'm firmly behind completing this project to the best of our ability. And when you look at that alleyway, and I do think what you plan with your dumpsters, they are important. That controls the trash in your downtown area. And if you work with a business and you find ways to conquer all the problems, as the manager has said, you're going to throw a stone and hit 3 projects, and the alleyway and the parking lot. I went through there and took a look at the lighting. Unbelievable. It's stadium lighting. Crime will run away from the area because if there are cameras, which they are, it's well lit. I saw the granite project when the mini excavator started working. The granite project in that parking lot is one of the most complicated, intricate, beautiful jobs that I've seen. Now, when it's done, I'm sure it's going to be fine, but I'm a big fan of let's get it done. I'm in favor of this because there's no use putting this beautiful parking lot and then they got to walk through a ghetto. So to me, I'm not against any other projects in any other side of town. It's talk for another day. But I'm not in favor of taking any money off this project till it's completed and make sure that we push it through. Thank you.
Councilor Marquetti.
Yeah, I would just like to respond about some of the comments Councilor Adams made. First of all, it was presented to us that the Morris Street project would cost about $250,000. Now, that was up from what I was first told. However, I will point out that when we did the fuel farm tanks at the airport, the town came up with $72,000 to fund that. We had a grant for the fuel farm. The town came up with $72,000. So in this case, it would probably be about the same. The town would have to come up with $70,000. If you can do it for the airport, you can do it for Moore Street. As far as 7 days, or I'm sorry, as far as having this done by June, I don't think the state is going to care when we get it done. They're going to care that we have it planned out. But my question is, are you going to have this alleyway done by June? Because if you don't, then we're going to lose the money. Thank you. That's all I'm going to say on this.
Councilor Adams, did you have some?
I have nothing else.
Councilor Steves?
Just a quick question, actually, to dovetail off of what something Councilor Lazo said. I had somebody in the neighborhood over there was actually, you mentioned the lights, and somebody in the neighborhood was concerned about the lights on the near end not being on. All right, when are they going on? I know it's not quite directly germane to this.
I know that the lighting project, some of the lights are on because they were able to temporarily get them on,
right.
But that new panel that they need to place and everything hasn't been done because that got canceled by National Grid, and it's in the process of being rescheduled when they knew the weather was going to be favorable for them shutting off power. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that will all of that lighting problem will be solved when they put the new lighting panel in.
Do you have a rough idea when that's going to be?
As I said, it's still in scheduling.
Still scheduling, okay.
And so you have to go to National Grid to schedule it and then follow all those proper procedures. I think we're aiming for the beginning of April.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
So we're trying to schedule it with National Grid right now is really the answer.
I just want to make a couple comments. First, I commend Councilor Marquetti's passion about the Morris Street project. It's not the first time he's brought it up. He brought it up before he was a counselor at another CDBG meeting. So I think that is a worthwhile project that we should explore and have citizens input and have them attend a meeting. And I commend Councilor Marquetti for passion in bringing those issues, but you have to have public hearings when you target a certain area, which we've vetted this program through that. I always dislike the knee-jerk reactions that, hey, we have an extra set of money, we don't do any planning, and then it blows up into 250 that may become 300, that may become $500,000. If we want to do the project for, you can laugh all you want, Councilor Marquetti, but that is what happens.
I like the Central Street parking lot.
Let's finish an area. If we're going to target Central Street parking lot, if it was part of the original thought process to target that. The original project was to put a parking garage there that the town of Southbridge could never afford, okay? So instead of doing something halfway and keep a blighted area and look at the town of Southbridge, we spent $1 million to do this, but we didn't spend the extra $100,000 to clean up some dumpsters and alleyways. That is not good thought processes. We want to plan Morris Street. Let's bring it to the table. Let's say, hey, let's find some money. Budget season's here, Councilor Marquetti. You want to debate free cash and the use of free cash and advocate that my project wants to be Morris Street, then bring it to the table, debate it, get some support from fellow councilors, and say, DPW, do a site design, do the work, how much is the guardrails, police details, and all that, and let's get that project done. Be fully supportive if that's what the residents of that area want. We have this targeted area that we spent $1 million in. For another $100,000, we're going to clean up a whole entire section for the residents, for the businesses. We should be good partners to businesses. We should make sure that it's an inviting area for people to come, to want to shop and visit Southbridge. That's how you get these projects done. Did a great job on the signage. People commend us for the signage that department did. All right? We have a Main Street project now, and you got to think the global Main Street project from Pine Street all the way down to Everett Street is going to be done with new sidewalks, new traffic controls. We have in the pipeline La Rochelle Way, Hook Street area. So let's finish this one project, make it look nice, and then, oh, by the way, we've just done a whole Main Street redevelopment, and oh, by the way, we're going to do La Rochelle Way, and perhaps maybe down the road we may have a fire station on Central Street, and now we've cleaned up that's vision for Southbridge. That's how we move it ahead. Instead of the hodgepodge, let's target, oh, let's do a little bit here, but not plan it, and then follow-up money and debate money. Let's finish a project, make it look inviting to the residents through economic development. That's the reason for these funds. I fully support it. Any further conversation?
Just a quick comment. I got phone calls for and against that sidewalk on Morris Street. 2 in favor and 2 against. The 2 that didn't want the sidewalk don't want to shovel it, because the town bylaw is you're going to put the sidewalk in, somebody's going to shovel it. I was open-minded. I'm still open-minded. The part that I'm having a hard time with is, why did this all of a sudden drop now while this project is in full swing? When something's in full swing for completion, that's what you concentrate on. You don't throw a new project on top of something that's already started. At least it doesn't end well. And you're going to have a lot of competition for that money in this town, because there are plenty of sidewalks that are offset by 4 inches with an orange line on it, where there are hundreds of citizens. So when you go to your public hearing and Morris Street shows up, you can go to the bank. It ain't going to be a cakewalk, because there are a lot of sidewalks in town that take a higher priority than Morris Street. But that debate is for another day. Thank you.
Councilor Adams, did you have a comment on this, or do you want to?
I want to thank them, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the economic team and the CDBG coordinator for keeping this under budget. Unlike rumors, this is actually under budget. So I will say thank you again for taking that phase 2 and making it phase 2 and 3. based on the engineer's recommendations as well. That's all I have on that one. Thank you.
Councilor Marquetti, I saw your hand. Did you have something you want to say?
I'm just saying that there's other priorities, but Morris Street is a targeted area. And this money, it does qualify for this money. As far as being under budgeted, I set aside $100 a week for food. If I spend $75,
Mr. Chair, I vote to move the question.
He has the floor right. Hold on one second.
I voted to move the question.
Well, let him finish his comment. I'll give him
Point
10
of order,
seconds.
Mr.
I just want to
Chairman.
say it's
When
not a
someone
matter of
moves
being
the
under
question,
budget.
you
What?
have to have a vote on the move of the question.
There was no second.
I second it.
All those in favor of moving the question? Opposed? Councilor Marquetti, Councilor Jovan opposed. Move the question. The question on the floor is vote to approve spending the remaining CDBG FY 2018 Central Street parking lot funds, expanding the project to pave and improve Hamilton Alley. Roll call. You cannot amend this because question was moved as written. So you have to move to, I believe, Councilor Lazo, the question was moved as is. You have to take up this question. You cannot amend it. It's not amendable. Correct?
Has anybody attempted to amend it?
No. So that's what I'm saying. And there was going to be a motion from Councilor Adams to amend it. So the question is moved as is. So if we want to have further debate on the question, you would have to not move the question.
No, moving the main question ends debate on the main question as it is.
As it is, correct. So you have to have a vote on the main
But he can
question.
still amend that motion.
Oh, you moved the question. You moved to have that question voted on.
Correct. You're correct.
Thank you. Can you say that again?
You're correct.
Thank you, Councilor Lazo. So if this motion needs to be amended, you have to vote, well, you vote no. We're in a quandary because we have to make an amendment to
I
that.
withdraw my second if the previous speaker removes her motion.
I don't move my motion.
Okay. So just to be clear, there is no dollar amount on this, and we needed to have a dollar amount on this. That was the only reason for the withdrawal of this, so that we could have the ability to amend it, to include the dollar amount for CDBG of $111,000 and what other miscellaneous funds that had to be used. Councilman, you have a question? Well, no, I can't debate this because the question was moved, so.
I remove my second.
I don't remove it, but if he removes his second and I don't get any support, then it's still debatable.
So,
But unfortunately, that it should have been stated beforehand that this should have been amended, that there should have been a dollar amount in the beginning. So that's all I was going to say.
So Councilor, with all due respect, when it came up before us, the conversation was that we could have this discussion because we didn't have the exact amount until the council. We did know that we were going to have it. Quick question, and then we'll move on, please.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if a parliamentary question is in order, if I might?
Yeah.
The question, I'm trying to look for a resolution to the situation quandary we're in. If the motion as on the floor was voted down, a member who voted for the motion to reject this could then reconsider and bring it up on the table is what I thought might be a good process to get us out of this quandary.
Yeah, thank you. That is correct.
Can I make a motion to reconsider?
After we voted down, if it's voted down.
I thought we already voted. Okay, go ahead. I thought we motioned to move the question.
Yeah. So, roll call?
Councilor Catrona?
No.
Councilor Daniel?
No.
Councilor Jovan?
No.
Councilor Lazo?
No.
Councilor Manna?
No.
Councilor Marquetti?
No.
Councilor Steves?
No.
And
you
Councilor Adams?
No.
Okay, motion fails.
Move to reconsider.
Motion by Councilor Steves to reconsider. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on it? All in favor of reconsideration? Opposed? Councilman Marquetti opposes. So the motion is reconsidered. So I'll now entertain a motion for amendment. Councilor Adams?
So vote to, as you were going to amend this motion, to vote to approve spending the balance of fiscal year 2018 CDBG grant funds currently calculated at $111,946.50 and up to $19,000 of miscellaneous CDBG income if needed, to pay for the continuing the Central Street parking lot improvements to the section behind properties of at corner of Main and Hamilton Street.
Second.
Quick question, did you give an amount on that miscellaneous funds?
19,000.
No, okay, I just didn't hear it, 19,000. Okay. So there's a motion and a second. Discussion on the amendment? Mr. Town Manager?
Just a question, because I know that we're using some of this miscellaneous funds. So to the department, I just want to make sure that with the transfer from the miscellaneous account, do you believe you'll have enough money to finish this project?
Yes.
Peck?
Yes,
Go
Counselor.
ahead.
Can you just clarify, was the motion fiscal year 18?
Fiscal year 18,
Okay,
2018.
okay.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Councilor Adams?
I just want to make note that there was originally 75,000 in that miscellaneous funds, so we're just taking 19 from that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Council Marquetti opposes. Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended? Seeing none? Because this is grant CDB, roll call.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
No.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Peg. Thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you, counselors.
Item 20, vote to ratify the contract with DPC Engineering LLC for $134,939.97 for the sewer system evaluation Phase 1 project dated February 20th, 2020, from account number 410000-5300000-64190, I&I Evaluation Specialized Services, and 600-440-583-000-20580 System Capital Account. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Town Manager, I know this went to DPW and was passed unanimously.
You're correct. This is to change to do the sewer evaluation system. I'm going to let Heather, the DPW director, she'll know more detail on this, so I'll have her explain it.
This is for our Phase 1 I&I study, which is a requirement from Mass DEP that we perform this in accordance with their guidance. So this is a bid that we put out to do that I&I work. Again, I&I is inflow and infiltration, and it is very key that we reduce our inflow and infiltration as much as possible, because that actually improves the operation of our treatment plant and lowers our costs. This was bid out. We did receive 3 bids. The bid evaluation was in your packet. We have vetted the company that was the low bid. We feel very comfortable that they'll be able to perform this work.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Steves?
Yeah, just a quick clarification. I'm trying to find, it's probably buried in this pile of paperwork somewhere. We're pulling it from 2 different accounts. I just want to
Yes,
clarify,
one of
how
them-
much is
One
coming
of
from
them
each
has
account?
125,000. I actually think both of them have 125,000 in them, so we'll work out how we want. One of them is a capital account,
Right.
it's a project account, and the other one is in budget, so I'd probably want to use the in-budget money first, so that it would just go into retained earnings if we didn't use it all, but
Yeah.
we work that way.
Yeah, I remember you saying that at the
Yep.
subcommittee meeting. I just couldn't remember what the numbers were. Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 21, vote to ratify the engineering contract with Time Bond for $70,900 for sludge conveyance upgrades dated January 3rd, 2020, from account number 600-440-583-0000-20582. Plant Capital, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Heather?
So this is for the design of the upgrade of all the sludge discharge conveyors. We have 2 old conveyors that convey from the building out to the other building where it's processed. Those were scheduled to have their regular 5-year maintenance that we do on them done. And when we upgraded our sludge treatment, we've now realized that they have become very problematic in their operations. Basically, the sludge is so dry now that it doesn't stay on the conveyor, and then it cakes in the whole thing and clogs up and causes big problems. So in addition, we were having problems with our discharge conveyors underneath our centrifuges. What we have proposed in the design, some conceptual design was done to try to solve the problem of our discharge conveyors, and what it came up to is that a better design would be to use a screw conveyor discharging out into a bin that could be transported out. So we're reducing the number of conveyors, reducing some of our maintenance headaches that are an ongoing cost. The good news is because we are getting so much drier sludge, we actually are producing a lot less sludge, so we can handle it in these volumes much easier than we would have in the past.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. Blakely. There was a few years ago, we did something with the sludge conveyors.
Our sludge dewatering project is just about wrapping up. There's actually a change order coming up to close that project out. So I know it seems like this is almost like a continuation of it, and I would say it has parts of it, but the other conveyors would have been scheduled to have maintenance done on them as well. And now we'll just removing those. So if you have been down there, there's those big silver boxes that go out to where we process the sludge. There is a conveyor inside that box. It has very limited access capabilities. One of the first projects I worked on when I came here was the regular belt maintenance and roller maintenance on that roller. So it's something that has to be done quite frequently in a frequent cycle because they degrade. They need heavy maintenance. And they're costly. That project 6 or 7 years ago was over $150,000.
Right. So is this, just follow up on that, this is part of the process to get you up to speed down there, or it's just part of the maintenance process?
Combination of both.
Okay.
It's actually a combination of both. The sludge conveyors that we have, the discharge conveyors are working. They don't work the way we like them because they make kind of a mess. So we're hoping that we can mitigate that problem. And the other discharge conveyors that they're going on that were the existing ones are starting to break down and would need heavy maintenance on them. So we're combining the two to try to give us the best solution for the future. The nice thing about this also is we're actually thinking ahead. I know a lot of you have heard of PFAS. We are going to have to test our sludge compost for PFAS coming up. And if it turns out that we aren't able to continue this process of turning it into compostable, the compost, we will be able to use this to still dispose of our sludge right into trucks to be hauled away. So we're designing it with that operational flexibility.
Thank you so much.
Any further discussion? Council Marquetti?
Just to be clear, this is just for engineering, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Anything further? All those in favor? Opposed, unanimous, all present. Item 22, vote to ratify change order number 4 for the phosphorus removal and sludge dewatering upgrades with Hart Engineering in the amount of a negative $9,085.25 with a final contract cost of $2,693,619.27 with the following changes. COR number 12, inline valve CMH 7 credit, a negative of $2,766. Change order request 17, relocate existing HWS, HWR lines for MAU 1 for a plus $4,804. Change order request number 24, conveyor number 2, shimming T&M for an increase of $3,736. Change order request 25, process drain line increase from 6-inch to 8-inch for a positive change order of $2,988.56. Change order request 27, additional painting for increase of $855. Change order request number 32, eliminated centrifuge platform credit, a negative $18,702.81.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Heather?
So as I just alluded to earlier, this is the final closeout change order for this contract. There's some pluses and minuses here as we go along in these big major projects. We kind of keep a tally and try to make decisions as we go to make sure that the work continues and goes on. So this is how we get to the bottom line at the end of the contract. You can see we have we're negative still here, which is always a good thing. You know, I wouldn't say that this wasn't without its hiccups, but as I said at subcommittee, you know, we did almost over a $2.5 million project here, and we're still ending up just barely having a small increase over the whole cost of the project. This is a major project. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different retrofits that had to go on. You can never know when you're retrofitting an existing building everything you're going to run into in the future.
Any further discussion? See none? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 23, vote to appropriate, and there'll be an amendment on this,
Yeah, I got it.
for water retained earnings of $35,752.98 for water retained earning to fund the payment to the town of Charlton representing their share of annual earning based on the intermunicipal agreement IMA for water. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Councilor Lazo.
I'd like to make an amendment to change the money number from 35,752.98 to 36,127.74.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the amendment? Heather, do you just want to explain why there was a quick change?
I will.
Okay.
So originally in your packet, we had a list of liens that had to be put against this account, which is in accordance with the IMA of how we do it. So if there's any outstanding money that we're owed when we do our final accounting, we get to hold that money back from giving them the credit that is in the IMA. One of those accounts was actually paid up to date. It was a Town of Charlton account, so they, instead of leaning it, said, we will cut you the check and pay for it, and that had to be taken out of this money because they actually have paid for it now. So it came kind of at the last minute here with all the stuff we were doing, so we retrofitted the numbers. I provided you with the updated numbers, and you can see where the credits came. I apologize for the late notice.
Okay, that's fine. Any further questions on the amendment only? All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Okay. Discussion on the main motion as amended? Any discussion on that? No questions? Okay. Council Marquetti?
Could we have an explanation of what this is about?
Go ahead, Heather.
So we have an intermunicipal agreement with Charlton to supply them water. As part of the negotiated agreement, they get a proportional amount of whatever is certified as retained earnings. And so if you see the calculations here, this year it was about 10.7%. It's based on how much we invoice to them, I guess is the best way to say it, how much is allocated of how much their residents are paying to us as to have the water, for the water, compared to how much overall the whole system is. So they're about 10.7% of our revenue. And in the agreement, like I was speaking, we get to withhold money for purposes of anything they haven't paid us. So that's what the lien amount was, and that was the number that changed. Does that? Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we had a healthy debate on this at the meeting. Councilor Lazo?
I wasn't going to say anything, but I can't help myself. This was one of the deals that was made prior to this council, and I don't think whoever was negotiating it really knew what they were negotiating. I was chairman of the purchase of the water supply, and Chet Spievogel always told us, don't ever give up your infrastructure. You're in the water business, sell your water. And when I heard that we gave up the infrastructure, I asked the question, what did we get for our infrastructure? Nothing. We got rid of a headache. That was the quote. But in the private sector, you'd never see this happen. This was a bad deal. They didn't put Southbridge first. Now we pay Charlton in the agreement, and we have to pay it. It's not up for debate. That's why tonight we're voting a boilerplate payment to Charlton, and it's a tribute to the negotiators that were sitting at the table a few years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Thank you. Chief Caitlin, you're next. Vote to amend Section 6-200, Keeping of Pets bylaw, according to the changes made and recommended. This is the first reading of March 9th, 2020. So we have a reading. If you'd like, we can have the chief and Caitlin come up and explain the differences and what some of the changes are briefly, unless somebody entertain a motion to waive the reading in the entirety for the first reading, as we've done in the past, and have it posted accordingly, and then we can have the chief articulate. If otherwise, we'll read it, and then they can entertain and ask questions during the court. So, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to waive the reading, Mr. Chairman.
Second the motion.
Okay. And as previously articulated in previous waivings of the reading, if one council says that there's opposition to it, we have to read the entire document for this reading. All those in favor of waiving the reading? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. So we'll waive the reading, but Chief, you guys have sat here so long that if you want to give a discussion about what the changes, highlight the changes for us for this first reading, then we'll have you come back for the second reading. And I promise next meeting I'll put you first, since you were last this time we'll put you first. So I appreciate the fact that you've sat here as long as you have. So go ahead. So the floor is yours. You want to just introduce yourself again and highlights?
Hi, I'm Caitlin Spencer, Southbridge Animal Control. I've been working for the town of Southbridge since October of 2017. Since taking on the position, it's come to my attention that some of the updating to our animal bylaws was kind of needed, so I took on the challenge and looked at what we had currently and wanted to get us more compliant with the Mass General Law and with what our surrounding towns are. Few changes to the keeping of bylaws is changes to our dog licensing policy. Proposing to go back to a one-year dog license policy versus the 1 or 3 year. It's been kind of challenging for me to enforce that, and there's multiple reasons why I do propose the 1 year versus the 3. Also, there is changes to the rabies control bylaw that we have. I was noticing that we're out of compliance with the Massachusetts general law into that, so I just kind of organized it, put definitions and roles of the animal inspector versus animal control, since it was all kind of combined. We added quarantining of animals, which we didn't have currently. I also included nuisance and dangerous dog hearings into our bylaws, and how myself or the community can come forward if there is a concern for a dangerous or nuisance dog in our town. There's also some newer Massachusetts general laws regarding to tethering dogs and timeframes, regulations on how to confine your dog outside if you're going to house your dog in that manner. Also, what's included is confining your dog in a motor vehicle. So if you are one of those dog owners that wants to keep your dog in your car, there is some regulations in that. With the warmer weather coming up, it's an increase in call with dogs in cars, and how to help prevent it and how to help save a potential dog that's suffering from exposure to heat. This also goes for extreme cold too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Council Steves, this came to your subcommittee, and I'd like to thank Council Steves for taking it under his subcommittee. You know, there was a lot of meetings to discuss this, lengthy meetings, and thank you and the chief for taking a lot of the comments that council's had, incorporating in, and coming up with a very good document. Chief, did you have anything you wanted to add? Council Steves, do you have a recommendation?
We did vote unanimously to recommend it. I also want to point out that we had a few people from citizens who came down and had some comments and some input on that too, which was important, which doesn't happen all that often with bylaws, unfortunately. And just one point, just for kind of a technicality. When we do this as a final reading, just make sure that we don't have there's sections in here that say, like, for example, language moved to rabies quarantine, or stuff that all the stuff that's struck out. Just make sure they're not in the final
It would just be the final document,
yes,
with
yes.
the highlighted out and all that.
Right,
so.
exactly.
Chief, did you have something?
If I could quickly, thank you again for having us here tonight, but just real quick, so the citizens are aware, the bullet points of this bylaw change, the tethering and confinement, right now, our animal control officer has to contact a humane officer before we conduct any investigation. There's 9 that cover the entire state, so that can take quite some time for them to respond. This would allow our animal control officer to immediately investigate and ensure that all animals are kept safe. We also have no limit right now as far as how long you can keep a dog on a leash, unsupervised. We're looking to do the standard, which is 8 hours. The rabies control, ours was last done in 1997. The state updated all the rabies vaccinations in 2016, so we need to get with the times, and that's another reason why this is before you. Last but not least, licensing. 3 years, we're going to a 1-year license. Every community in the area does it. Everyone around us does it. One of the biggest complaints I've had since I've been chief, believe it or not, about animal control is the non-licensing of dogs. This is going to help our animal control officer dramatically take aggressive enforcement on those type of violations if people aren't licensing their dogs. Last but not least, this entire document will be on our social media pages by tomorrow morning. So if any citizen wants to view it on our Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, I'm also going to forward it to the town manager. I ask that you put it on the town website, so the citizens will have plenty of time and opportunity to read the entire document if they need to.
Chief, could we also ask you please put a copy in the library?
Absolutely, I'll speak with Margaret in the morning.
One inside your station as a paper document and post it as we do other bylaws so that people that don't have access to a computer or social media or anything like that have an opportunity 24/7. There's no excuse that they can't come down and look at that document.
Yep.
All right, Councilor Adams?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I didn't hear Councilor Steves. I thought you said maybe a clean draft at the last reading.
Yeah,
Should we have a clean draft at the next reading?
probably should.
Just, and especially at the library and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I mean, these
That's what I
strikeouts
would
are
recommend.
useful for us, but they're kind of confuse things for
Right.
when we get to the.
So you'd have what the final
clean
document would look
draft,
like
Yes.
with all the strikeouts. Okay, yeah, thank you. All right, any further?
Thank you.
All right. So Chief, I'll put you up first for the next meeting and remind me, okay? All right, Council's Forum, Council Lazo?
Quick issue, through you to the town manager. I got a call, and it's an old issue. It's a resident at West Street Field. He lives in the outfield, and his van has a whole bunch of pucks in it from the adult baseball league that they had. And then there was rumor that they might be putting another adult league over there. This has been going on, I guess, for quite a few years. Goes back to Town Manager Coughlin. So the resident, I saw him and I said I would bring it up, and I don't know if they can move it over to Dresser Street Field, or that field or what, but that house takes a pounding.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've had numerous conversations with that resident as well, and for a year, the league had moved over to the other field you were talking about, and it didn't work out, and they moved back. I know that Jared, our recreation director, is working with them as well. They are willing to put up some money, and there's some money set aside to put up some netting to protect that house. He doesn't like that either, but we're looking for a solution that would work. We've had numerous discussions with the league, the players there who look at it from a different point of view, and they don't believe that many balls are hit into his yard. I don't know. I'm not there to watch the games, but Jared is working on it, and I think one of the major ways to resolve it is through netting.
Just a point of information, that field was constructed as a Babe Ruth field for young kids, younger kids. So when a men's league comes up and they hit the ball, I mean, there was a police officer called and he saw the top of the van roof with all the dents in it. So I know the gentleman's making it up, but if netting is the answer that you're saying, I just don't know why. Once we built the new high school, McMahon Field opened up as a useful field for town leagues because the high school doesn't use it anymore for baseball. So for me, I don't understand why it didn't work out at McMahon Field. It's a fabulous baseball diamond. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Steves?
Just two quick things. One is that to kind of tie into the fact we were just talking about rabies a second ago, there is the rabies clinic and dog licensing thing is going to be going on Saturday the 21st over at the DPW. And that's also going to be featuring a Board of Health vaccination drive-through testing testing facility. That just to make it clear, there isn't actually a vaccination. They're actually, not actually getting any medication. They're just trying to see that their process works properly, and catch the little flaws that they can fix later. And the other thing I wanted to point out is the literacy volunteers are looking for new tutors. So if you're interested, there's an information session for anyone interested at Jacob Edwards Library on Monday, March 16th from 5 to 7. And the course itself for training people will be at the Gladys Kelly Public Library in Webster, mostly Tuesdays between March 24th and April 30th. There's 6 sessions. The last one happens to be a Thursday. So if you have any interest, you can check out the literacy volunteers. I'm pretty sure it's on their website. It'll be on the library's website. It'll be in a bunch of different places. So it looks like this. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Just a couple things, and it's just my view and my opinion on these, and, it's not, that's all. So one thing as a town council when I first got elected was I always kept in mind that I don't advocate for things I advocate for the community, but I try not to advocate for things in or around my neighborhood, only because it just gives the appearance that that's all you're doing. You're advocating for things. And when you advocate for things within your own neighborhood as a town councilor, and you get those things done, and it improves your neighborhood, it also improves the value of your home. So it can get pretty tricky there. So I just want to put that out there as a reminder for sitting councilors and the next council that's coming in. And also, with the landfill, my methane to landfill methane energy gas program, I mean, it's brought up a lot of talk and stuff. And sometimes I feel like I'm on Twitter or on Facebook because all of a sudden all the experts come out of the woodwork and they're telling you what's good, bad, and everything else. Well, I suggest that you do your own homework and you get the answers, and you go to the EPA website and you can get a lot of really good information on landfill methane energy programs. And if you just Google it, you can find tons of communities that are working with this program. And, I also hear, I'm really glad we got the Landfill Sustainability Committee, and, because I hear a lot, we got rid of the landfill. We don't want it in our town. We don't want this. We don't want that. But I have not heard a solution on what we're going to do with our garbage, except for I've talked to a few people, and they say, well, I don't care where it goes as long as it's not in my backyard. So we got the NIMBYs. So, that kind of bothers me. You got these people who advocate for, health and environmental safety and all this other stuff, but they don't have a solution to where our garbage goes. So that's all I'm going to say on that. And let's see. Oh, and to the town manager. Now, we know sometimes the media can hype up things and make, the communities fearful of things. I just want to know if you're in touch, and I'm sure you are, the town, because we are the town government, with regard to the coronavirus. If you're in touch with the hospital and getting updates, and if Andy's putting out any bulletins or whatever's going on. So I think the community needs to hear this from us.
So through you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, I posted a bunch of information on the town Facebook page. Andy met with a representative of the hospital today to talk about that issue. The school system is also involved in discussions. You may have gotten a phone call today from the school system talking about the coronavirus as well and what you should do. So there's a lot of discussions going on. My discussions with Andy, though, I mean, they can do the basic information stuff that's out there, but he's also waiting direction from the state Board of Health or Department of Health to give him more guidance as well. So I think right now there's a lot of activity happening at the state to develop a plan that they're going to pass on to municipalities. But so far, other than the basic information, there hasn't been a lot put out.
Sure. So I think, and it's sad to say because, I mean, we should have been proactive and not reactive. It's a good learning lesson and something that we can learn from, and going forward maybe have, a good plan set in place should anything like this happen in the future. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Catrona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, since I'll follow up on Councilor Manna's comment. There are a few simple things that you can do to help yourself and others stay healthy. You can wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, mouth, and stay home when you're sick, please. And that's just a quick follow-up to mention. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Just want to talk about the generator. I'm looking forward to the update on the generator that we discussed last week at the town council meeting. Secondly, for those that tuned in late, there was that article, Southbridge Evening News, Charlton Villager, I believe it's called, that stated that the town of Southbridge was looking at putting another landfill here in town, and that's farthest from the truth. There hasn't been no conversation in the Curbside Advisory Committee. Again, we have not even discussed anything like that. That's not what we've been charged for. So please, if you have any questions, reach out. I wish that journalists would have reached out as well. And lastly, I believe I heard that the Southbridge High School cheerleading team is going to the state finals. I believe I saw that the other day. So if that is true, I wish them nothing but the best, and good luck to you guys. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti?
Thank you. I just wanted to comment also on that article that was in the newspaper. I'm on the Curbside Committee. We've never talked about starting a landfill in Southbridge at all. We have talked about transfer stations, but that's something that I thought that we should probably consider at our own DPW barn, but whether we do that or not, it's totally up to the committee. I do think that we should start talking about what we are going to do in 2024, because as some of the garbage companies that have come to us told us that's something that you're going to have to start talking in a couple of years and not wait till 2024. And so how are we going to pay for it? Things like that. I advocate that it stays the way it is, coming out of tax money, but I'm just one guy, and other people on the committee have advocated for other ways to go, but I think it's something that we should start this year discussing it. I would like to point out also that I'm at the library every Thursday at 1 o'clock. Anybody wants to come down and talk to me about any issues in any neighborhood in town, I am there, and I will certainly take it up and do the best I can to address their issues. I have looked at a lot of issues in town, not just my neighborhood. I don't live on Morris Street. I've talked about the International Club. I've talked about issues on Everett Street, at Elm and Everett Street, with some garbage that piled up. I advocated for some people that live way on the other side of town by the Charlton Street School that had a garbage problem, and I thank the town manager and the health director for cleaning it up, but that's not my neighborhood. So I do try to look out for anyone, any neighborhood in town, and try to address their issues. And like I said, every Thursday at the library, 1 o'clock, come down. I'm there. You can talk to me. Thank you very much.
Okay. I just, one quick, before I turn to Councilor Daniel, just to make it clear, we have been working on the curbside collection issue. So to say, let's start, we are. That's the final, the report is due.
The budget, the money.
Well, we need the report first and then go, but that's why we took an aggressive approach right off the bat and said, let's not wait 5 years. And I think some of the people that came to the table said, it's great that you started so early, because if you decide to do something in your town, whatever it is, transfer, you could take 2 years to permit it. So I think we were at the forefront to get that done.
No disrespect.
I just want to say.
I just meant the budget, that's all, the money to pay for it.
Okay, so when you say start, it sounds like we didn't do anything as opposed to budgeting.
Thank you.
And it is going to be, I can't wait for the report. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to remind people at home that there is an election coming up in June, and there were 3 council seats, 4 school committee seats, as far as I know, and numerous other seats that are up for grabs. It takes no time to come down to the town clerk's office, grab some nomination papers. All you need are 39 signatures of registered voters in town, no party affiliation necessary, and return the papers by, I believe, April 11th. It's somewhere in the middle of April, I know that much. We need people, we need good people, we need people that want to be involved and interested. You saw tonight how good government works, a lot of discussion, a lot of good information being brought out, and we need more good people to consider continuing that process. It only helps the town to get better. Thank you, that's all I have for that. The next meeting of the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Town Council is Monday, March 23rd, 2020, at 7 p.m. here in Council Chambers.
Agenda item 27, vote to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following two purposes. Section 21A, subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation in the Toxics Action Center Incorporated et al. Versus Casella Waste System Incorporated et al. U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts, case number 4:17-CV-40089-TSH. If the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the town, and I so declare it does. Section 21A, Section 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract with negotiations with non-union personnel. Again, this is strategy with respect to town manager Ron Sanangelo. Is there a motion?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo? Yes. Counselor Manna?
Do you have to, just one moment, do you have to read the town council will reconvene in open session?
I was going to after we did the roll call.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Thank you. The town council will reconvene in open session for the purposes of adjournment only. Thank you and have a good evening.